folks, we're here after some serious technical issues. Sorry for anyone that's been waiting. We're finally here. Thanks, Paul, for hanging on and helping me out there.
You're welcome, man.
Quick explanation.
Technical difficulties, they always happen.
Quick explanation of what actually happened was basically on my StreamYard account, something's went wrong default, and the person that I had as a moderator, it seems, is became in charge of the account. So when I ironically went to log into my own stream as such, I couldn't get access. It was as though I was a guest and I was waiting on this host who doesn't exist. So that was the problem, and I had to set up a new account. But we're not dwelling on that. We're here now. If you're just joining it and you're watching the replay, then as I say, thanks for hitting up the channel. This is a kind of new series. I've done live streams before, but they have mainly been just me, going through my collection and whatnot. This is the first time I've had a guest on, as I say, joined by Paul. Paul's a fellow YouTuber, and he very kindly had me on his stream a few months ago now. I think we did a Batman one as well, didn't we, Paul?
Yeah.
And I had great fun on them, and I've been really keen to do my own one and have a guest on. So it was only fitting that I asked Paul to come on, and I'm pleased that he's joined me here tonight. So the Geek-Chat thing, basically the idea is that I'll have people that I've befriended or other YouTubers who I genuinely appreciate their content, and I follow them myself or both, and get them on, have a bit of a chat, find out what the score is, what brought them to YouTube, what their interests are, and then obviously I'll put them through the paces of the stuff that I like to cover on my channel, and then we'll talk about whatever TV shows, movies I've been watching, and kind of current affairs, if you like. So in this one, we'll be talking a little bit about Obi-Wan and Stranger Things, because the world's gone Stranger Things daft, and Paul was a bit of a Star Wars aficionado, fanboy, in the nicest possible sense. So he's a good one to talk about with regards Obi-Wan. We can get some of his thoughts on that. But yeah, as I say, please comment along, and we'll answer the questions as we go. I'll try and kind of dive in and out. We'll obviously talk what we're talking about, but I'll keep an eye on the comments and we'll answer them as we go. So yeah, Paul, tell us a little bit about your channel, mate. Obviously, I've watched a good bit of it, but you can, for people that maybe are meeting you for the first time, what's the kind of score of your channel, mate?
Yeah, man. So basically, I started my channel about a year ago. Basically, just reviewing movies. That quickly went into doing my own live streams. I met a lot of people through the YouTube community, like yourself. I brought you onto our live streams. We were doing a stream called Thursday Night Heat, where basically it was sort of take the gloves off, kick back, have a beer with a group of like-minded people, and just talk about movies and what's been happening in the world of movie news, TV news, all that sort of stuff. That's on a bit of hiatus at the moment. But yeah, it's just a channel where I like to go in, talk about my passion, films, TV, video games, when I get the time to play video games. Yeah, that's all the sort of stuff I cover on it, man.
Awesome. So for me, like, just to kind of back that back at you, for me, yeah, it was something I've always been into this stuff. Probably harking back to I used to work in Blockbuster Video. Way back. That's like, kind of it's funny that that's such a nostalgic thing now, and people that grew up, that were either too young to work there or don't even really, remember it. It's weird that they kind of have that in such elevated status. I just took it for granted when I was there, working in Blockbuster. But yeah, that kind of accelerated my love for stuff, and then I got right into the technical side, like 4K and all that. So, I don't know if you watch them, Paul, but I watch like films at home and stuff. So he was kind of, Films at Home and Spare Change are two big YouTubers that kind of cover like 4K Blu-ray. Right. And I really enjoyed watching their stuff, so I just thought, I actually fancy having a go at this myself. And it was born out of circumstance. I've got two young girls now and I don't get out as much. So I thought this is something that I can kind of do from the comfort of my own home. So that was how it came about for me. But, I'm really pleased that I did, because like you say, it's great meeting other like-minded people, which, it's quite a niche thing now, like especially movie.
It's one of them, mate, as well. And you probably have this as well, Andy. Is that the older you get, the smaller your circle of friends get. So it's good to sort of go online. You can meet people. I probably count on one hand who I class as actual friends, and not all of them are into what I like. So you can branch out through social media, through YouTube, and you can find like-minded people who you can share your passion with. It's funny, what made me prompt to start my channel originally was I used to religiously watch Collider Video, which is an American sort of movie talk show. They used to do it daily. I used to watch it daily. John Campier, Christian Harloff, Mark Ellis, if any of them names ring a bell. They're all big YouTubers in America, big film pundits, and I'd watch them daily, and they're just round the table, cameras on them, and they're just talking about movies. I sat there for years, like years. I'm like, I can do what these guys are doing. Like, why can't I do this? You know, they were just relaying information that I could relay myself. So I just thought to myself, why not give it a go, see what happens? And there we go.
Absolutely, because but I'll say one thing, it does, you'll know yourself, I mean, you've been around a bit longer than me, you've certainly put out more videos, Paul, but it's quite hard work, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, like, when I first started, I was dedicating all my time to it. All my spare, if I ever had spare time, video, get it done, get it edited. I was up to all hours getting it done, getting up early, getting it done before work and stuff like that. I took a little step back from that, so I'm sort of just doing videos when I can now, when I've got the time, because I was finding out I was using the time, my spare time, where I like to watch movies or TV and play games to try and make content. And I was thinking, well, I can't make content if I'm not consuming the stuff I'm doing content on. So I took a little bit of a step back, and I was doing like 3 or 4 videos a week, and I took it down to maybe like 1 a week. Sometimes it's been a bit longer, but I'm always there. I'm always trying to put content out when I can and when I want to.
Yeah. I think 1 a week's like healthy. 1 a week's about all I can manage, to be honest. I feel like if I'm trying, unless they're shorter, and I've got a tendency to my videos go on a bit, so my kind of natural style. But I think if I was making like 5-minute videos or so, I could maybe get more than 1 out a week. But I feel when I'm trying to do 2, it just becomes, like as you say, too much of a stress, and then it becomes like, it feels like a job as opposed to a hobby. So maybe things will get slicker as you get more used to editing and all the rest of it. But for now, 1 a week's kind of good enough for me. But yeah, it is one thing to watch these guys around the round table, and you think, I could have a go at that. But it's definitely been an eye opener to me just how much time it takes to put something out that that hopefully is of a high enough standard, or that somebody will actually watch. But yeah, no, that's cool, man. As I say, it's cool getting to chat behind the scenes a little bit to another YouTuber. Yeah. So what would you say? So obviously you're a movie man, Paul, like movie and TV shows and stuff. What would you say was the catalyst? Like, so what's your earliest memory of, being totally captivated by cinema or TV shows, whatever it was?
I'd probably put it down to, my first memory of watching a movie on the big screen was Jurassic Park in 93. Now my parents are adamant they took me to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in 1990, but I would have been like 4. I don't really remember that. I can still vividly remember going to watch Jurassic Park, where I went, sort of what I was wearing, if you like, who I was with, and that's a memory I've never forgot. But in terms of getting into movies, I was fortunate enough where I've got parents that allowed me to watch things I shouldn't have been watching at my age. So I was, brought up on stuff like Terminator 2, Predator, Aliens, all that good 80s stuff, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, all them sort of films, man. They were my gateway into movies. Definitely Arnold Schwarzenegger, that guy, man. I idolized that guy when I was a kid. Could not get enough of him.
It's amazing how similar that is to my kind of upbringing as well, Paul. Even when you said there, your first film that you can't really remember was Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. That, no joke, was my first movie as well. That was the first cinema experience I got. My dad took me, my brother, and my little cousins were even younger than us, because I must have been 5 at the time or something. And I remember more about him misbehaving. He was up doing like karate kicks and trying to be a turtle himself. So it was like a funny one, that one, yeah. But for me, it was like you say, my granddad. I used to stay at my granddad's quite a lot, and my gran and grandpa were very liberal with what we watched. You could pretty much pick any. My papa was obviously into like VHS and that. I always remember he had a bit of a VHS collection, and it was all the stuff you're talking about: Die Hard, First Blood, Predator, and all that. And when you're a wee kid, you're drawn to that, aren't you? Like you're like, oh, this is a bit naughty. What's this about, man? This guy with rippling muscles, or like a big monster, or blood and guts. And like, all right. Yeah. So that's what
it's just boys will be boys sort of stuff, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's just.
Aye.
It's just sort of boys will be boys sort of stuff, isn't it? Like you see violence and you see swearing and that, and you're instantly captivated as a child to it. I was anyway.
It's bizarre, isn't it? I
Yeah.
know. It's like, yeah, I've got a comment here. I'm just going to read it out, mate, because I appreciate it.
Yeah.
2 seconds. So we'll get Total Movie Recalls jumped in the chat. Easy, lads. Sorry I'm late. Hope all is well. All is well.
We were late as well. So
You can't really be late, mate, when we were 40 minutes late ourselves.
yeah.
But no, I appreciate that. Thanks for dropping in. Ellis over at Total Movie Recall's got a YouTube channel also. He's mainly on Instagram. Someone that I've kind of befriended. Do you chat away to?
Yeah. Quite a bit. Yeah.
He's a sound guy, man.
I like his setup, man. His setup makes me jealous.
Oh, totally, man. I'm hoping to get Ellis on. We just haven't organised it yet, but I'm sure Ellis will come on at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for dropping in, mate. Anyway, yeah, so, yeah, what would you say? It's a really difficult one. Even if you can give me 3, right, no particular order, what would you say are your kind of favourite movies then, mate? What films define you?
It's a question they always get asked, like, what's your favourite? If you say someone you're a film fan, the first question they're going to ask is, what's your favourite film? I feel like I've seen that many. It's a hard question but like, if I had a gun to my head and someone said, what is your favourite film of all time? My mind instantly goes to Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Yeah,
it's the film I've seen the most in my life, and when people say I've seen it hundreds of times and like you're over exaggerating, I've not over exaggerated. I've seen that film countless times. Used to have it recorded off the TV on VHS, the cut version, the uncut version, the special edition. If any way I could get to watch that film as a kid, I would watch it. I was absolutely, it just took me imagination, that movie, and I absolutely loved it. Star Wars is another one. I'm a big Star Wars fan. It's my favorite movie franchise of all time. Not saying that some of the movies in there are the best movies of all time, but in terms of franchise, it's easily my favorite franchise of all time. What else? Yeah, stuff like Predator. I absolutely adore that movie. Aliens, RoboCop. I know you're a big RoboCop.
I'm a big fan of RoboCop. Yeah, that's what RoboCop could easily. I always say Blade Runner, which maybe seems like a bit of a cop out. Or maybe not a cop out, but loads of people like that. But for me, I'm quite a kind of deep guy, to be honest. I like it. I like it when there's something behind the film. There's a lot of philosophy. Which makes Blade Runner so relevant to this day. You can watch that at any time, and the themes in it are still relevant. But yeah, to me that's the perfect cocktail. You've got the kind of elements of the film noir. You've got you've got Harrison Ford, one of Hollywood's biggest actors, in the role, and Indiana Jones in it, Han Solo, and kind of serious adult sci-fi, if you like. Ridley Scott's direction, the set design has gone on to inspire so many other films.
Yeah.
The soundtrack from Vangelis, and then obviously you get Rutger Hauer delivering the now immortal, kind of ad-lib line at the end. So Blade Runner for me, as much as it's a slow burn, and I'll admit it's not one you throw on to be totally thrilled with every scene. But if I'm say gun to the head, it's Blade Runner. But I could easily swap it in with a RoboCop. That's one that I could play a part in. It's kind of similar, a bit more poppy, a bit easier, more entertaining to watch. But it's also got themes in it that are going to stand, the test of time. So yeah, RoboCop, Blade Runner. And then I suppose an honourable mention for me is James Bond. To be honest, it got me as a reason I'm a movie fan, and that's what initially got me hooked. Well, probably Star Wars actually as a young kid, and then as I hit kind of adolescence, I kind of idolised James Bond and everything that was in that. And I'm a bit that if I was on Mastermind, Bond would be my specialist subject.
What was the first Bond film you remember watching?
The first Bond film I remember watching, believe it or not, was The Living Daylights.
Okay, right, yeah.
And I remember where I was as well. I was in my nana's house visiting with the parents, and it was on, and I just went silent. I remember watching it and just thinking, this is fucking amazing, man. Yeah. Probably didn't see that when I was 5-year-old, but I was hooked on it and didn't look away.
I was shown Bond as a kid and didn't really gravitate towards it, but then I remember being taken to watch GoldenEye on the cinema, and then that was it for me. That was my definitive jump into James Bond, was GoldenEye. Still remember going to watch that as well, and yeah, that was my gateway. And then I sort of went back and sort of revisited all the older ones before it.
Yeah,
and Blade Runner. I've got quite a funny story of Blade Runner, because I come into Blade Runner quite late, because I remember being shown Blade Runner at a young age, and I remember my dad who showed it me, and he said, "Watch this, it's like Star Wars." I was like, "Oh, is it?" Yeah, I watched it, and I was like,
Star Wars.
This ain't like Star Wars, my boy.
Why is Han Solo so grumpy? Why is he drinking?
Yeah, I was like, this is boring. And then obviously I revisited it when I was a bit more mature, and I was like, oh, yeah, this film's incredible. I adore Blade Runner. It's a great film.
I think I watched it in VHS as well when I was really young, and kind of the same as you. I remember thinking, you know, you get that feeling when you're like, I'm watching something that's quite, you know, kind of significant here, but you're too young to really understand it. And then I visited it as like a teenager and loved it. But yeah, James Bond's a big part of my kind of like upbringing as such. I used to collect all the VHS video tastes were like that. But yeah, and then I got the DVDs. But the first one I seen in the cinema was actually The World Is Not Enough. After the heartache of going to see Tomorrow Never Dies, right?
Yeah.
My dad, but I was 11. And the guy for some jobs worth at Odeon was like, "Wait, Johnny, wee man," and I was like, "My dad, I rehearsed this kid on date of birth." And that way you can see the cogs turning because I'm trying to think what it is. And he's like, "You're not 12, are you?" And I'm like, "I'm 12, and my dad's like, "Look," my dad just bursts and goes, "Look, it's my boy. He's going to see James Bond. Look, we're coming in." But he's only 11, and the wee jobs was like, "Nah, you're not." So like, the only film that was on was Home Alone 3. So can you imagine the come down as a Bond fan, 11-year-old, wanting to see Tomorrow Never Dies, and then the film you end up going to see is bloody Home Alone 3. The shit.
Is it 12?
Films ever.
Is it 12? Tomorrow Never Dies?
It was a 12, yeah.
Was it? Yeah. Okay. I was trying to think there. I was like, "Oh, they're PGs then." Really up those.
Yeah, the Brosnan ones onward were 12s, I think.
Okay.
Hold on, right, I'll get some of these comments and go. So who we got? The camp fella, the mod fella, the guy that this is the guy this is the culprit that StreamYard thought was the host for some reason. No fault of my mate Scott's. But alright boys, didn't get the notification, been on long. We've been on about 15 minutes, mate.
Yeah.
Sorry, we had a massive issue, as you know, because I was actually texting Scott about it to see if I could sort it. But thanks for sticking with us and jumping in, Scott.
Cheers,
Sorted in, yeah. So video tasties, is it 9:30 already? Time flies, eh? Time flies when you're not online.
I think you've scheduled your video accidentally for half 9. That's why.
Aye, I know. Thanks for waiting on. Thanks for hanging on, Gareth. Gareth's another guy that's hopefully going to be a guest on the Geek-Chat. So cheers for dropping in, Gareth, mate. Campfather, Tomorrow Never Dies, my first Bond cinema visit. I think the first I seen was Live and Let Die. Good one to see for the first time, yeah. It should have been my first visit, as I was just talking about there, Scott. But Home Alone 3 it was instead.
Ironically, what's the Bond with Halle Berry in?
Die Another Day.
Yeah, that was one of the first of about 10 DVDs I ever bought. That was one of the first DVDs I bought. Was that? It just sprung to my mind there, so I remember getting it.
I've still got it. I remember it came like I had all the DVDs, and they had a spine all made 007 on the side.
Yeah.
And what was cool about Die Another Day was when they released it, it was like a reversible sleeve, and it had that little bit so it could fit in. So I've still got that. I'll always keep them, I think, just because they kind of mean something sentimentally to me. Collecting them, pocket money, and all that. It's not as easy as now. I can just buy something.
I've got all my DVDs in a box in the attic at my mum's, which I like to call the archives. So my mum will go up there every now and again and bring something down that I've not seen for years. I'm like, bloody hell, I got that from the archives.
Anyway, I think that's enough. So we like similar things, Paul, certainly when it comes to the favourite movies. But as you know, my channel, certainly to begin with, has been all about like 4K. So I'm big into I get off basically on tech, and I love seeing things like as good as I can possibly watch them. Yeah. And that's born out of the fact that I love movies and stuff. So I love, you know what it's like. I know you've got a few 4Ks yourself, Paul. When you get something and it's on 4K, if it's done well, it can really feel like you're revisiting.
Oh,
like for example, Terminator 2 is a bad example because it wasn't a great transfer. But that kind of film for you, something you've seen over and over again, 4K can be a way to like, view something again for the first time if you've played it to death. So I suppose you can't really have you on, mate, and then not ask you about 4Ks. So what would you say? Again, gun to your head 4K. Now this is more about not so much how much you love the film, but if somebody came into your house and they were like 4K, I'm just stick to Blu-ray or streaming, and you had to convince them from something with your collection, what do you put on? What's like your demo 4K?
Can I get it?
Yeah, go and get it, mate. Yeah. Mad Max, good shout, mate. I've not watched mine yet, so you can tell me about it. What's it like?
You've not watched it in 4K?
I've seen Mad Max, but I've not watched it in 4K, no.
Mate, I mean, like, I don't know all the sort of techno jargon, but I remember watching it being like, yeah, this looks incredible. I mean, like, I'm fortunate enough, I've got a good setup in my house as well. I've got a nice TV, nice surround sound and that. And when I popped that in, I remember I already had it on Blu-ray, and I don't know if you do the same. I go online and sort of like what's worth getting on 4K.
Yeah,
And always at the top of a lot of people's list was Mad Max Fury Road, Mad Max Fury Road. So I picked it up and I popped it in. And I was like, well, yeah, this is demo. This looks incredible. All the yellows, just all vibrant, all bright. The sound, the surround sound, and it's incredible. I'd probably say that's probably one of my favorite 4Ks I've picked up easily.
Yeah, I mean, I had the Blu-ray for years before that, so I'll show you mine. Mine's fancy. So I did an unbox for this on the channel. If you've seen it, probably I bought like the Steelbook collection of Mad Max. So this is like the Steelbook from that. So
I'm going to buy that because I think it's gone down in price now, hasn't it?
I know. I'm a bit gutted because I pre-ordered it thinking it would maybe sell out. And obviously I kind of wanted to unbox it for the channel, so I paid full price, like £100 for it. And then it wasn't even like 5 or 6 weeks, and people were commenting on the video going, "Oh, you must be kicking yourself! I've just bought it for like £50 off from Italy, Amazon Italy." And I was like crying into my pillow at night. But I'm looking forward to watching it. I've seen Mad Max and the Road Warrior. Like, I've watched the 4K. I've seen them all obviously, but I've watched them on 4K and I was very impressed. But yeah, looking forward to watching. Yeah, you're right. The Blu-ray looked amazing. So
yeah, that's it. Yeah. I mean, I've got a quick question for you, and obviously you're like sort of one of my go-to guys for 4Ks. There's a lot of debate online. People saying like the older films look better because they've been upscaled. I've always thought like newer films look better because they're filmed in 4K, so you're going to get the most out of it. So I've bought a couple of 4Ks. A good example is Halloween. I bought that on 4K, and people online were saying like, it's night and day from the Blu-ray and whatnot. And I was watching it, and obviously when you've got the eye for it, like you yourself probably got the eye for it, you can see it, and you can see what's happening. To me, I was watching, I was like, I don't feel like I'm benefiting anything from it from the Blu-ray. So that's one example of that. I mean, like I have bought the Thing. The 4K for that was one I really noticed. Like, this looks incredible. It's 4K. I was noticing it. Another older film was Alien. Alien, the first one on 4K. I was watching that thinking, I don't know how this film was made in 1970. But apart from a few shoddy special effects, that film still looks incredible. And it looked even better on 4K. It's like I was watching it for the first time.
Yeah, I think that is a tough one. Like, you see loads of people like Films at Home. The guy Jeff, he's a big advocate for older films actually benefit from 4K more so than the new ones. I know what you're saying. Like, I like that. A lot of things filmed like Marvel, for example, are filmed digitally. They're not using actual old film print anymore, like 35mm or whatever. So you get that high precision, clean. You can't get cleaner than a digitally shot film, which can now record up to ridiculous like 8K, 9K beyond and all that. So I think you're right. I think see for someone that's younger, I would suggest like I'm 36, so like I would say people that are maybe in their 20s, they're probably not going to be wowed like you're talking about with Halloween, because I think people have got a misconception of what 4K should look like. Absolute crisp and clean as anything, which it can with the modern films. So if I was like demoing to like my wee cousin or something, I'd probably slap on like Mission Impossible Fallout, or like say Mad Max or a Marvel like No Way Home or something, and I'm sure he'd be like, oh yeah, that looks awesome. But the reality is though, see, I don't know if you've ever tried it, if you take the Blu-ray out of like your No Way Home, stick it on, it's also exceptionally good because the source is so good. Like
funny story. I bought Ghostbusters Afterlife, if you can see it. I got that on 4K. And I was like, I can't wait to watch it in 4K. And I popped it on. I was watching it. I was taking photos of it and put it on my Instagram, going, "Oh, this looks amazing, this." And then after the film was finished, I pulled the disc out and realised I was watching the Blu-ray. But yeah, that just goes to show the Blu-ray. It's one of them 4K. I love 4K, but it don't diminish the Blu-ray transfer because Blu-ray. Some Blu-rays look still look incredible now.
And the other thing is as well, like you're playing on a 4K player on a 4K TV, so it's taking that 2K source that's on the Blu-ray, so it's kind of weird. So it's maybe been filmed at like 8K, right? Compressed down to 1080p, like 2K for the Blu-ray, and then you're playing it on a 4K TV. So then the TV is taking that HD, like 2K source, and applying its processing to it. So in a backward way, you're kind of almost getting back to the 4K. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's just not natural. It's just not native because there's been an algorithm to compress it, and then the TV algorithm is basically creating the detail. Like it's not the actual detail; it's creating it. But TVs are so good at it now, and what you end up with is like something that, like, even I struggle. I'm not an expert. I'm just someone who's maybe got a bit of an eye for it. But I'm not the god. I'm not definitive on it. I'm not using any like technology to decipher what I'm seeing. But yeah, back to what you're saying about like the older stuff. The thing with the older stuff is that like 35mm in film can capture ridiculous amounts of detail. But it was when things were getting filmed in the 80s and that, they didn't have the technology to actually extract all that detail from the film. So the beauty of 4K for these older films, which is what like Epic Films at Home's talking about, is that they can now use these 4K scanning processes on the original negative and extract all that detail. And that's why things like Alien, if it's done well, you're like, how is this? This looks like it was shot yesterday, because it's pulling detail that no one's ever seen until they do the scan on it. So I think it's difficult to rate. Like, see, I do 5 out of 5 my channel. It's really difficult to take the likes of, I'm trying to think of what the proper Suicide Squad looked absolutely amazing, right? Shot digitally, all that, IMAX cameras. You take that and you give that 5 out of 5, and then you give, say, Jaws 5 out of 5. Or Predator. I think Predator is a 5 out of 5 transfer.
Yeah.
However, you've got to remember, Predator was filmed on old 80s film stock, which was notorious for grain. So if you're trying to get that as close to what it should look like on a 35mm print, the grain comes with it because that's part of the filming process. So you get all that detail that we're talking about that's never been seen before, but you also get the grain, if not more grain than before, because it's like, it's pulling even more through. So I showed that to my mate Chris. We watched Predator one night, and I was like, 4K, it's supposed to be great, mate. And we enjoyed it, and we got to the end, and I could tell he didn't want to say it to me, but he was like, mate, I don't think that looked very good at all. And I'm like, well, but that's the best Predator can look. That is the best it'll look. So that's where it's weird, because how can you? So it's like so someone might go, how can you give Predator 5 out of 5, Andy, and give the Does that mean they look just as good as each other? No, you've got to remember, like, a 5 out of 5 for an older film, is taking that into consideration. Whereas I'm going to be more harsh almost on a newer film, because it's starting off at a much higher level. So I could maybe, like, I gave Dune 4 out of 5, for example, because I didn't feel the HDR was very impactful, and it didn't excite me over like what the Blu-ray looked like. So I gave it 4 out of 5. But somebody might look at Dune and look at Predator and go, "What is this guy talking about?" Like, does that make sense? So it's kind of different.
I mean, a good example of a bad 4K I've bought recently was I bought the Ghostbusters double pack 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The first Ghostbusters film, for me, watching it didn't look great at all. It was very, very grainy. You could see it so badly. And I remember I read reading up about it, and apparently Ghostbusters was originally filmed on quite cheap film at the time.
Yeah.
So they were struggling to make it look as good as it can. Now the sequel, Ghostbusters 2, looked incredible in 4K. Yeah. I was a bit disappointed with it, because I literally went from it, watched it on 4K, and I just popped the Blu-ray to see the difference. And the Blu-ray for me looked, it was easier to watch it. I wasn't picking up on all the grain and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's it. It's probably because when they've made Ghostbusters 2, it's a few years later, technology's advanced. Yeah. The first one was such a big hit, so it's got more of a budget. So they maybe, the studio's going to take a risk with like more expensive film stock, and that's probably what's happened there. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, I feel like probably putting people to sleep with too much of this chat, as much as I'm enjoying it, mate. But
I find it, as a film fan, as a physical media collector, I do find it interesting, because it's what I do when I buy 4Ks. I'll go online and source it out and see if it's worth buying first. Yeah. Whereas I've never done that with Blu-ray. Never did it with DVD, but with 4K, I feel like it's worth doing.
I think it's because the whole reason it came about it's because of what you're saying. So see, DVD to Blu-ray was a massive jump. There's like you didn't need to get someone's opinion on will this will be worth it on Blu-ray. Of course it will, because it's like it was such a monumental jump. Whereas 2K to 4K isn't. It's it's more of a subtle upgrade. Some can seem like a massive jump, but I would say for the most part it's quite a it's a narrow margin. So I understand why guys like Films at Home and me to an extent on a very small level are like filling that gap to advise people on, because it's 25 quid at the end of the day, isn't it? You're like 25, 30 for a steelbook more. So it's a big investment, especially if you're sitting there with the Blu-ray already, isn't it? So you're like, but yeah, no, it's anyway. I'll answer some comments here, mate. So, Video Tasties, does that Mad Max have the Chrome version? It does, Gareth, mate.
Mine doesn't.
I've never watched it, but apparently that was the way that George Miller intended the film to look. He wanted it to be black and white, and that's how the re-release came about. It was the studios weren't interested in showing it in black and white. So apparently that's mate.
I don't think this version.
So that's the black and chrome version there. What's that, Paul? Sorry.
I don't think this one I've got does have it.
No, I think the initial release didn't have it, and then they released on Blu-ray. It was like a special. Even the Blu-ray was like a limited edition special edition that had the two.
Yeah, they re-released, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think you're right. That kind of first release 4K you've got, they didn't bother, which I kind of get, because obviously the whole point of the 4K is like the vibrant colour and all that. So why are we going to put a black and white one on it? But yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, mate, it does have it, which I like stuff like that. I hate when something's missing. If I know there's an extra cut of that, I feel I need to have it. I thought the new films CGI FX were made in 2K, so they have to upscale them to 4K, and older films are somewhat downscaled to 4K. Yeah, pretty much what we're just saying there, Gareth. You're right to an extent. The problem with your No Way Home, your big Marvel ones, the problem is that it's so CGI heavy. So if you want the disc to be in native 4K, then the special effects have to be in 4K as well. So you imagine how detailed CGI is these days, so that like 2K, so HD is detailed enough, then they're then having to like be even more intricate times 4, which would take the CGI, the technicians basically forever to do that, and it's just not worth their time. That means the studio's paying these guys for ages. It's going to slow down production, slow down the release of the film. So the special effects are finished at 2K. The live action stuff will be shot at like ridiculous resolutions, like 8K and stuff. But there has to be somewhere the DI, as they call it, the digital intermediate of the two, has to be finished at a certain resolution. So that's why films you would think surely that's going to be a 4K native, like No Way Home, Avengers at Endgame and all that kind of stuff. Don't quote me on that. Don't know. I know some of the Avengers are 2K DIs, I think, but that's how it comes about, and it's purely for cost efficiency. But as we said earlier, it's so well done and then upscaled on your TV that a lot of the time you wouldn't even know the difference. But yeah, no, good point, Gareth. Thanks for your comment, mate. But yeah, so that's a little bit about the kind of technical side. I didn't really tell you what mine was, did I? Just very quickly, but the one I've always went for is my reference disc. I've got a few, but so I went for recently. Now that I've got into collecting a bit more, I've noticed how easily steelbooks scratch. So I've bought these wee slips. You can get them online for dead cheap. I think I paid like $5 for about 200 of them. But they just keep them protected. Because you're spending like 30 quid on them and that, so it's so annoying, isn't it, Paul, when you get to wee scratch. But yeah, so this is Blade Runner 2049, and I think that it's not actually full fat 4K. I think it's got a 3.5K DI, bizarrely, but near enough. So it's shot digitally. It's Roger Deakins on the camera. So cinematography is absolutely fantastic. You've got all the kind of neon Blade Runner aesthetics, which pop really nice. There's some really nice dark scenes, like the opening sequence to 2049, where Kay is waiting on Dave Bautista's android coming back, and he's sitting in the darkness, but you've got the contrast of the light from the window and all the shadow detail. HDR is a bit of a demo there for that. It's a bit of a demo scene. And then you've got a one that's great for OLEDs, showing that, I think, is the nightclub scene. So when Kay first has that confrontation with Harrison Ford and the Elvis hologram comes on against the pitch black and you've got the razor light, that looks amazing in HDR. And it's noticeable over the Blu-ray. Blu-ray still looks nice and it's really crisp, but it doesn't have that poppy, flashy HDR goodness, if you like, for the colours. So that's my demo. There's probably better ones than that now, but I think maybe just because I love Blade Runner as well, I just think in the way it's shot, it's just a feast for the eyes. So that's my
it's probably in the top 10 best 4Ks I've seen, easily. Blade Runner 2049.
It's the soundtrack as well. I'm forgetting the name for it. Like, it's just an all-rounder because it's got an amazing Atmos soundtrack with loads of LFE, loads of dynamic. There's what they call the spinners, the cars. That scene when he crashes in the scrapyard's brilliant, like with all the different surround sound off. But yeah, that's my disc. But a few honourable mentions, I'd probably say that ones I've reviewed this since the channel started. Suicide Squad's an absolute showstopper.
Yeah, what I liked about Suicide Squad, it was pretty much full screen as well. So
yeah, you get that wow. If you've got a big TV, you feel like you're getting value for money, don't you? Yeah, so I would say Suicide Squad was pretty awesome.
Interstellar's probably another one I think's a good.
Yeah, Interstellar. So I've got that. It's really nice. The sound for Interstellar is absolutely ridiculous. It blows your home cinema system. Yeah, it's quite difficult to make it dialogue, but that's like a classic trait of Nolan films, unfortunately. But yeah, so I suppose we'll round up on that side of things then, Paul, with we're talking about like your setup. So I'm just going to tell you what I've got as a setup, and then you can kind of let me know. So mine's probably pretty. Amongst my friends and that who aren't massively into this, my setup probably seems pretty pretty advanced. But I know that in the home cinema enthusiast world, mine's pretty much kind of entry level, But so I've basically got a standalone AVR, a Sony one, which everything feeds into, like my PlayStation 5, my Blu-ray player, and I have the Wharfdale DX2 cinema package, which gets like 5 out of 5 on like what hi-fi and all that. But it was only like 400 quid. Okay. And for that, you get the 5 speakers and the subwoofer. So I've got initially I had 5.1, and then I went on, I don't know if you've used it, but AV forums, and I went into the class fields, and I managed to get to Onkyo Atmos up-firing speakers, which I added into the system. And I've mounted them on my, you maybe see in the channel, I've put pictures up sometimes in the videos, but I've mounted them on the wall a bit higher up, because I've got a high ceiling in here, so that they don't have as far to travel. And it's not ideal, I don't think that like the kind of up-firers, I think having them on the ceiling's much better. But I do feel like I get the height effects, and then I've also got the surrounds. So I've now got a Cambridge Audio subwoofer, because my DX2 subwoofer just died, which was a bit annoying. But yeah, so I've got Cambridge Audio SX150, I think it is. I use a Sony X700 Blu-ray player. I've got the PlayStation 5 as well, but it doesn't have Dolby Vision and stuff, so I got that. But yeah, and I suppose most importantly, I've got a Sony 65-inch LED display. So it's like it's Dolby Vision capable, but it's got like local dimming. So for an LED, it's got a bit more dynamic contrast than your kind of cheaper one. So that's basically what I watch my movies on. That's what I do my reviews on. But I'm fortunate enough to have an OLED in my kind of living room, and I'll stress test the blue. So I know that sometimes you're not quite getting the full black levels on an LED telly. So if I'm doing my reviews and I think the black levels are a bit ropey, I'll sometimes give the dish the benefit of the doubt and think, well, let's stress it. If it looks good on the OLED, then it's maybe just the limitation of my LED telly kind of thing. So that's kind of how I do my reviews, and that's my setup basically for anyone that's interested. But what are you kind of rocking then, Paul? What's your setup?
I don't know all the techno jargon of the names of the products I've got.
You don't have to go. Just roughly.
I've got in my living room. My living room's quite. I wouldn't say small. It's quite a big living room, but it's filled up quite a bit with furniture and stuff, so it's quite cozy, if you like. And I've got on the chimney breast right in front of me, like we've got like an L couch right in front of me, a 55-inch Samsung 4K TV. I bought it like 5 years ago, and it was $1,000 at the time. I bought it from PC World, I think it was. I was talking to the guy, and he goes, "This is like the top of the range one at the moment, and it'll probably do you for like the next decade." Now, I don't know how much he's lying to me, because I've seen a lot of better looking ones now than mine, but I feel it does the job. You know what I mean? And obviously, I've got a PlayStation 5 there as well, so I've got a 4K player, and I've got an LG surround sound like home cinema system with 5 speakers, well, 5.1 with a subwoofer. I think that was supposed to be 500, and I got it for 300. I think it was on sale online, but I can't remember what website it was. But that kit, like, when it wants to, it kicks. I mean, it goes up to like 50 volume. I think I have to have it at 20, and if it goes any louder, I'm getting the neighbours knocking on the wall. I mean, a good example, I was testing out the Batman 4K, and I was watching it, and I was in the house on my own, so my girlfriend wasn't in, so I was watching it on my own, and I thought, it was getting to the Batmobile scene, I thought, I'll crank it up just a little bit more, see what we're playing with it. I went up to 25, and I kid you not, it was shaking the room, and I'm not over-exaggerating, I could hear it. I could hear the shelf next to me. There's like a shelf sort of against the wall next to me, I could hear things rattling on it, and I was like, oh my God. So yeah, I've not got the most expensive setup in the world, but I feel for what like I said, I've got quite a small living room, so it feels like sort of a cinema as well, especially when it's dark at night and the curtains are closed. And you can get that sort of cinema feeling with it. I think I'm only like 3 meters away from the TV where the couch is, so 55 inches a good size for us, and it literally fits the chimney breast like to perfection. So it looks nice on the wall as well. So yeah, that's one. I want to upgrade. I'm thinking about upgrading maybe next year. I really want an OLED. I think that's the future. I think that's where a lot of people are going towards now. Yeah,
I would recommend OLED, mate. The story. So I got what I would advise if you're on a budget is right. Is to look at so I like Sony TVs. I would recommend them. I'm a Sony fanboy in this house, but so I got my Sony OLED refurbished, or it's graded stock from my local Sony retailer. So it was a TV that was 1500, and all it was open box. There was actually nothing wrong with it. It just had an open. So it's obviously went to someone, they've returned it, or it's been the wrong size or something. Comes back with an open box, but the guy was brand new up at the Falkirk Sony Centre, and he's like, it's open box, but because I've got the ability as a franchise to put the 5-year brand new warranty on it, you'll still get that on it as though you'd bought it new. So I got the TV for 900, so 600 quid off it straight away, just because it's got an open box with a 5-year warranty as though it was new. So I would highly recommend, because I couldn't afford that TV for that price, but for under £1,000 I could do it. But as I say, so it's kind of weird because I've got an OLED and it's 55, and the picture quality in the OLED is better, but in the kind of cinema room I've got a 65, so it's not quite. It's very good picture quality, but it's got the wow factor of being a 65. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of prefer watching the 65 because it's got the accompanying surround sound. But I do when I'm sitting watching casual stuff, I'm like, oh, the OLED's just a wee notch above when it comes to the picture quality. So I would definitely advise OLED. But I'll just quickly jump into some of these questions now, Paul, before we crack on. So who have we got? Jim's Retro Emporium. Thanks very much for jumping in, mate. Evening all.
Yeah.
Hope you're doing well, Jim. Video Tasties is just saying hello to Jim. Video Tasties. He's got to dial it back. He's always got to go retro. What was your last CRT TV? I had a 32-inch widescreen that needed at least 2 people to carry it. I don't think I ever had. I think the time I got one place, Gareth, obviously we'd moved into the world of flat screen TVs by that point. But I remember the reason I'm a bit of a Sony fanboy is probably because when my mum and dad, my mum and dad are working class now, we didn't have huge amounts of money in.
Yeah.
So when we got this TV, I remember they got this Sony in the mid to late 90s. Do you remember the Sony Triniton? Do you remember that? It was maybe the equivalent of you get Sony Bravia now. Sony Triniton was their big thing in their CRT. And it must have, I don't know what it was. It felt big to me anyway. But it was probably I don't know, not 32 inch or something like that. It seemed big. It was big and cumbersome, but the actual screen wasn't that big. But it looked nice. It just had it was 90s, but it had that kind of oh, we've got a Sony TV, this is premium. And it's probably that's carried forward me as an adult into viewing Sony as upper echelon. So that's probably the last TV I can remember, Gareth, was the Sony Triniton that mum and dad had. I remember circa 97. But I think we all did in our bedrooms back then, didn't we? You remember watching Channel 5? I remember when Channel 5 came in and it was on your wee, I think it was a Grundig portable I had. Grundig portable or an Alba or something. Tuning in Channel 5. It was such a big event. Spice Girls were launching it and all that, and you're messing about with the tuning to try and get Channel 5 on. And watching that was when I used to watch the Batman 89 and all that. It was on repeat all the time. And my brother would sneak through and all that, and we'd watch it. But yeah, to answer your question, that's my memories of CRT, Gareth. Campfire, Grundig TV, VHS, and DVD all in one effort was mine. That's the kind of ones I'm talking. That was your typical 90s kids bedroom setup, wasn't it?
Just a quick question, Andy. Do you remember buying your first DVD player? And how much did you pay for it?
Yes, it was an absolute like Chinese piece of shit. It was like no offense to Chinese people, but it was Chinese cheap electronics. But I don't even know how much it was, mate. But it was like one of these ones. It might have been bought from Blockbuster, and when Blockbuster are selling DVD players, you know that's going to be the cheapest of the cheap.
I got mine from.
Like,
sorry,
you're saying it might jog my memory when you tell me what you got.
I remember going. Basically, something happened, and my mum got a lot of, like a sort of an outpay or something. So she had a lot of money, and she gave me £500 to get a DVD player. I remember going to Comet. Do you remember Comet?
£500 for DVD.
Wait. No. The player, I think, was about 350, and it was a big silver thing. I think it was a Sony one. It was massive. And I got 2 DVDs at £20 each. They were X-Men, the first X-Men movie, and Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon. They were the first 2 DVDs.
Hollow Man.
They're the first 2 DVDs I ever owned. I remember setting up, putting X-Men and being like, whoa, this is the future. This.
Yeah, I think mine was like a. What was it, man? Did Iowa? Am I pronouncing that right? AWIA, Iowa, something like that.
Yeah.
It was some like cheap Asian electronic thing, like who aren't around anymore. It was silver. It was ghastly looking. It was like plastic silver, and it sat the old like Grundig, a shitty Alba portable, sat on top of it, which you're not supposed to do. Just like a plonk, probably crushing the thing. And my auntie Jo got me for like Christmas. It must have been Christmas '99 or maybe Christmas 2000. The World's Not Enough. Coming back to that again. Yeah. So I get The World's Not Enough in DVD. That was my first DVD. Fired it on. Obviously, DVD was a widescreen, wasn't it? You get the odd video that was widescreen, but DVD was big on the whole. Yeah, you're getting to see it in the cinema aspect ratio. Fired it on, and I remember watching it thinking, "This looks awesome, fucking awesome, man!" Like watching I watched that DVD to death, and that was probably where it all started for me. You know, like the quality thing. I mean, I'm talking about watching a DVD on an old portable telly and talking about quality. There wasn't any, but for me, it was over VHS. So that's my kind of memory of it, and then it kind of went from there. I can't think what I got after that. I think I was heavy on like buying Bond and DVD I was collecting before I kind of branched into like other stuff. But yeah, that's my memory of it. Campfire. The first one I bought was a 50-inch plasma. People still rave about plasma. People still say that the motion on plasma was like. I think now it's been surpassed, but you know, up until very recently, they reckon that plasma had some benefits that even OLEDs and LEDs couldn't really replicate. But I've never seen one. Never had one myself or experienced one. Over 150, I think, at the Sunday. Come with Russia on next Friday. That was. I've
been meaning to watch the Friday films again for the longest time.
I've never seen them.
Oh man, they're classic stoner films.
But yeah, so sounds like we've got a decent setup anyway, mate. Like I think
does a job.
Yeah, but see the thing though, right? What I'll say is that I mean my first cinema setup was in my bedroom. I remember I bought like a 26-inch LED flat screen. It was a Samsung. I remember it was 26-inch Samsung. It wasn't even full HD. It was like 720p or something like that. HD ready, they used to call it. Mm-hmm. And it was something like 700 quid. 700 quid for a 26-inch Samsung. And I got it mounted on my wall. And then I bought this really cheap, like, you know, out the box, all-in-one DVD surround sound system. And I got Minority Report. And back then, DTS was a niche thing. So, like, most things had 5.1 Dolby Digital, but the odd thing, big blockbuster, would have DTS, which I didn't have the ear for it then, but DTS just seemed louder and more bombastic. And I used to play Minority Report over and be blown away with it. I mean, these wee tiny cube-like satellite speakers that were shit compared to what I've got now, but for me, it was like a big thing. So that was my first setup. But you've got to start somewhere, haven't you?
That's it, man. So important. I mean, like before I got my surround sound, I was just had a soundbar for the longest time. To be fair, so it was just a conscious thing. It was basically when I moved in with my girlfriend. So when I was living sort of on my own in just like a 1-bedroom flat or whatnot, there was no need to have it. And then I moved in with Claire, and the first thing I wanted to do was like, right, because when I was coming round here, when we were sort of first starting together, she just had like a little telly in the corner on one of them little stands that you get, black stands. I was like, this won't cut it when I move. So as soon as I moved in, I was like, right, I'm going to the shops, I'm getting a surround sound, I'm getting the telly mounted and all sorts.
It's kind of similar. When our first house, for my wife was already in, it was like 2-bed semi, and I came in, so this Toshiba TV, perfectly fine for the average punter, but I was like, nah, I'm not having a Toshiba telly. Sorry if anyone's got a Toshiba telly there, but that wasn't cutting it for me. And I like moved my LG in, which was a bit better spec, and I had to fight with a tooth and nail to eventually demote the Toshiba up the stairs, and I bullied my telly into the living room. But yeah, so as I say, but audio is so important. People underestimate it. Like I had a soundbar as well, Paul. When I stayed in a flat myself, I had this Yamaha. It was a really quality soundbar. It had an independent subwoofer, but it provided like virtual 7.1 surround.
Yeah,
and if you're right in the sweet spot, and you calibrated it, because I had a calibration mic. It was a Yamaha. It was like, I think it was like £1,000 when it first came out, but I got it second hand for like 500, 600. It won all these awards and that. And if you got in the sweet spot, it did create kind of like studio surround, and it was really nice sound quality. But I don't think any soundbar compares to actually having a speaker where the sound should be coming from.
Yeah,
and that's what people don't seem to realise, I think, is like 50% of this experience of a TV show or a film is audio. And
I think with 4K, that's even more apparent now with 4K.
Yeah.
Like that was one of the first things, obviously with the picture, but the sound quality to some 4K, like it's crystal clear, especially if you've got a good setup, man. You don't need to adjust anything. You can hear everything. You can hear, there's two speakers. I've got the couch there. There's one speaker here, one at the other side. And you can hear all. Claire will be at one end, and someone will be watching a horror film. Someone should like jump in because there's sound coming out of this speaker.
My wife's doing that as well. She's like actually turned towards the speaker and she gets it right. But it's like, because it's 50% of like, so you're talking about the Batman, like, so that's my most recent review for people that are watching. They watch the channel, know I reviewed the Batman, and then I went on about the reveal of the Batmobile, because that is absolutely tremendous, and it does something to you. Like when you're watching it and you hear it like that, and you like, my floor was literally rumbling with this Batmobile. That gets you excited. It gets you intimidated. Like that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to feel like Colin Farrell. You're supposed to be like, holy fuck, what is that? Like, and scared for what this thing is, the way the characters are in the film. And if you've got that come through the TV speakers, it still probably sounds quite good. But it's not even near what what it was like in the cinema, or you're not getting that same engagement. So you are definitely missing out. And my advice to anyone would be, if you're serious about movies and stuff, get yourself a decent cinema setup and factor that into your budget. Don't just blow your money on the TV, because I would take a poorer spec TV if it meant getting a surround sound system as well. So that'd be my kind of advice to anyone. But here's another question. So, Video Tasties, did you mount your own TVs on the wall? And if so, is it straight? Paul, put that one to you first, mate.
No, I'm fortunate enough to I've got a friend who is a very good handyman, and he gave me the friend discount, did it for us for a £10 note. All I had to do was buy the bracket, and he was around, and he put it up in the space of about 5 minutes. Had his little spirit level out, and it was all fine. I thought, you're sitting in different angles, double checking, making sure it's all right. It is. Yeah, it's a good setup. He did a good job.
That makes me feel
£10 well spent.
That makes me feel sick, Paul, because I got this guy to do it, and he's brand new. He's a nice guy. He did a professional job, but he charged me £200. It was a 65-inch TV, and he provided the cable and all that. And because I'm fairly handy with stuff like that, but I just thought 65-inch telly, like, my wife's not the tallest person. There's a bit of spam in the chat. Mod Fowler, if you can work your magic on that. If not, I'll try and get it. But sorry, back to what I was saying. So I paid him to do it, and he did a good job. And to answer your question, Gareth, it is straight, and it looks the part. But I did kind of think after it, I was like, what the sickener was. So we factored in the HDMI cable needed to be like a 10-meter HDMI cable, and I got it all set up, hooked it up to my. So that was going to be the one cable that goes from, because I've got an AVR, so everyone plugs into that, and then it's just one HDMI going to like one socket on the telly, and then it didn't work, and I'm like, what's going on here? And then I looked at the cable, and he'd got like the oldest, lowest spec HDMI cable. So all it could handle was like HD.
Right.
So I was like, but when he was round, he seen my PlayStation 5, he seen my 4K player and all that. Like, whether it was just, maybe it was just a genuine mistake, but I was like, that's no use. I was like, that's no use for me. It can't pass the signal through. So I had to go out and buy my own.
Yeah.
On top of the money that I'd already paid him for, and the hassle of like ripping the cable, pulling the cable out and putting it through. So I think I was a wee bit at the top of that at 200, but it's up now. But cheers for the question, mate. Campfire done. Nice one, mate. Cheers for that. I've nicknamed the Campfire the Mod Fella for his new role. The first ban hammer has been struck. Odin. Nice one, mate. I know. I feel like I've left it every time. Well, I say every time. This is only the third one I've done, but I've had Scott involved because I've seen it happening on yours. You get these assholes, don't you, that are like put up the spoilers for whatever the latest show or movie is. So I was like, I told, especially tonight, I was like, right, Paul's coming on. Maybe potentially more people watching that. There's more chance of these spammers coming on because in the past he's never been used. I think he was left feeling a bit empty-handed, but he's got to assert his authority there, so he'll be chuffed.
The last live stream I got was a day before Multiverse of Madness come out, Doctor Strange, and someone spammed every spoiler about that film in the chat, and me and Tarek was just sat there. You could feel the energy of the stream was just gone, and we were trying to come back from it. We couldn't. We were lit. You could see the anger in our faces.
It's kind of the same. Like, obviously, Stranger Things is the big one now, and I'm hoping to watch. I've just got the last one. We'll go into it in a minute anyway, but I've just got the last episode to watch, Paul, and that's what I was terrified about tonight. I was like, as obviously the host, I potentially may have to delete spoilers for Stranger Things. I've just realised I've just told any potential spammers watching. That was fucking stupid. But anyway, I deserve it now. But yeah, so that's what's worried about. But hopefully the mod fella will be in there swinging his hammer like Odin, dealing with him. So yeah, so that pretty much a bit longer than I thought to kind of cover the personal stuff, mate. But I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed having a wee chat about YouTube and our setups and 4K and all that. But yeah, so I suppose we can move on now to kind of what we've been watching and stuff. We'll talk about Obi-Wan and Netflix and stuff. So starting off with, so what you've been watching, like movie-wise, cinema, or streaming? What's good? What can you recommend to anyone watching?
I mean, like, you know what? I've not watched any movies at all this week. In the last 2 weeks, I've been catching up on Star Trek Discovery, which I've talked to you about, like on Instagram and that.
You were on a bit of
yeah, you know what? Like, I used to watch Star Trek a lot as a kid, and then I don't know if other people do this. You sort of just deviate away from it for whatever reason. You just something you watched when you were younger, you sort of just lose track of, and you just whatever. I've give up on it. And I got talking to a friend. He was talking about he's watching something called Star Trek Discovery. He was telling me what it was. And I just one day just pressed play on it. I think it was on Netflix. I think it's been took off now because of Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
But it was on Netflix, and just pressed play. I was bored, looking for Netflix, seeing it, press play, sat there. And I was watching it, and it was so cinematic, and it was like watching a movie, and I was like, what, is this where Star Trek's at now? Because all I've got in my head is, outside of the J.J. Abrams movies, is Next Generation, the original series, Voyager, all that sort of stuff. I enjoyed it when I used to watch it when it was on, when I was a kid. And I didn't realise how far it had come, and I was watching it, I was getting engrossed in it. I was like, this is amazing. If the old Star Trek stuff's episodic, this was more serialized, so it was leaving it on cliffhangers and stuff.
Yeah.
I just fell in love with it. I thought it was an incredible show, and I'm halfway through it. I think I'm on season 3 now. I think there's 4 seasons on season 3, so I've been catching up.
Smashing through it then. So it was only a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, that I was speaking to you.
Yeah, I've been really, really enjoying that. What else have I been watching? Stranger Things, of course, which we will get on to. Miss Marvel, which is a show, if you would have asked me at the beginning of the year, would I have been on board with it? I probably would have said, nah, it looked like Hannah Montana in the Marvel universe. I think it's one of the best Marvel shows they put out so far. It's so refreshing. It's entertaining. It doesn't warrant you having to watch any of the other MCU. I think it's a good standalone show. It's fun. I really, really enjoyed that as well. So yeah, that's probably the couple of things I've been watching as of lately. I went to watch. What did we go and watch last weekend? Lightyear. Well, just
Yeah,
Lightyear.
I took my oldest to see that
Yeah.
at the cinema.
It was Claire's, my girlfriend's, chance to pick the film, and she picked that. And I wish she picked Elvis. If I'm gonna be honest,
That looks good. Elvis.
it was all right. It Buzz Lightyear. It was what it was all right. I was watching it. I was going, "This is more of a kids' film." It didn't feel like that Pixar sort of magic where capturing adult imagination as well. It felt more geared towards kids. I didn't feel like Toy Story as a franchise feels like it grew up with the audience. So, when 3 and 4 come out, even though I was older, I was still getting them feelings of when I was a kid watching it. I didn't really get it with this. It sort of like a standalone movie. It was all right.
It does feel like, yeah, it felt like a bit of a kind of reboot. It's definitely distant, isn't it, to the original Toy Story films? I don't know the original Toy Story films that well. I enjoyed I remember being a young boy watching the first one and the second one, and then I don't really remember the third and fourth as much. But I read a wee bit about it before I went in, that it was going to be in the controversy around the fact they'd cast Chris Evans in the role as opposed to when Tim Allen so loved in it. But then it does kind of work, I think, because as you've seen it yourself, Paul, that right at the beginning it says in 1995, Andy, whatever it is, got a toy of Buzz Lightyear. This a toy from his favourite movie, Buzz Lightyear. This is that movie. So it works in a way that it's not Tim Allen. Tim Allen is the toy. Mm-hmm. This is fictional Buzz Lightyear.
That didn't bother me whatsoever, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, no, it didn't bother me either. I read it first. I was like, oh, that's a bit strange. Why have they recast him? Tim Allen surely could still have done it. But then when I actually found out what the film, with the premise of the movie, I thought it kind of actually works. But I liked it. I think you put up on Instagram what you put kind of mimicked my feeling on it. There's a bit of a mismatch of all the kind of most recent memorable, successful sci-fi. There's a bit of Interstellar in there, the whole time travel factor.
Yeah, I said it felt like Interstellar for 5-year-olds.
That's what you said, and I thought to myself, it's quite clever. That's pretty much kind of what it's like. But yeah, it starts off quite interesting. It's like, and then it kind of like, I don't know, towards the end, I wasn't sure. I won't spoil it for anyone, but I wasn't quite sure where the direction it went in the end. But yeah, I think it's worth a watch. But I think if you're going in there as a Toy Story diehard, you'll maybe feel a wee bit underwhelmed or cheated almost. But no, that's what I've seen. I'm trying to think what else I've watched myself, movies wise. I watched The Raid 2 finally after I put it to the people.
With that.
Yeah, and I remember you pulled me up about it. But before we go into that, Video Tasties here, I didn't have to waste time on that. Like, the campfire was writing about it. Just for that, mate. I watched The Raid 2 and I thoroughly enjoyed it. That kitchen fight sequence at the end was amazing. I thought it was overly long. I feel like it's as if maybe the director was thinking, right, so I've made this short, tight, supercharged action film. This time I need to try and like prove that I've got some that I can involve a bit of drama and direct a bit of like acting sequences and stuff. So I feel as though that's what he's tried, which is commendable if that was the idea. But I didn't feel it needed it. I didn't think like for me going into the Raid 2, I thought I was getting another hour and a half film of like John Wick style. Like they didn't John Wick doubled down. It was like the first one's got the best story, I think. John Wick, like it's got the most heart, and then 2 and 3 are basically just kind of like direct action.
More of that.
Yeah, more of that. Like we all know it was about the dog. Now it's just about he's in too deep and he's trying to fight his way out of it. And I think like that's kind of what I was expecting with the Raid 2. So I was surprised it went down this kind of like gangster epic and it had all these kind of like themes and plot twists. I felt like I was nodding off a bit, but then when the in between, but then every action scene I was like, fucking hell, they've raised the bar with everyone, and it's worth hanging on just to the kitchen scene at the end. So that's kind of like older stuff I watched. Another weird film I watched was this bad boy. I wonder if you've seen this, Paul. Hobo with a shotgun.
No.
Right, so it's basically exactly what it says in the tin. He's in this kind of fictional American town, and he's a pub hobo. Gets off the train at the beginning, and it's like over the top corrupt. It's almost like a live action Sin City, like a nightmare dream, quite colourful and stuff. And he's going about and he's getting like spat on and treated like shit and all that, and he's seen corruption all over the place, and it's got that like over the top violence where it's like, it's so over the top, and it's got a poor it's got a low kind of like production value to it that it looks so fake. Like, so it's like really violent, but it's so fake and cheaply done that it's almost like laughable kind of thing. And basically, Rutger Hauer has enough of it, goes into a pawn shop, buys himself a shotgun, and just starts taking people apart with a shotgun. So it's an hour and a half long. It's one of these ones that started off as like the director made a fake trailer. So it was like, remember Machete? And was it Planet Terror? The fake trailer turned into a movie. This is basically what he did here. It's a fake trailer. It wasn't Rutger Hauer, it was some other actor, and it got kind of crowdfunded, and somehow they managed to convince Rutger Hauer to play the lead. And I think if Rutger hadn't played the lead, it'd been one of these straight to like bargain bin, like forgotten about. He kind of makes it. But that was something a bit more obscure that I watched. But I can't even think what I could recommend movie wise. That isn't kind of massively mainstream. But I'll jump onto this and then we'll talk about some TV stuff. So, Campfire, The Raid is outstanding. Best modern day fight scenes. Yeah, I would agree. We were talking about The Raid 3, weren't we, Paul?
Yeah, like, because Gareth Evans been asked for the longest time, is he going to make a Raid 3? And he's said it, and he's being honest. He said, I don't feel like his words were, I believe, I remember watching like an interview of him saying that character would not put himself in that situation ever again for a third movie. And I sort of agree. Why would you? I sort of agree that unless he's sort of forced into it somehow. But he gets
especially the last scene, because it's fresh in my mind. Is it not like the very last scene in the Raid 2? Does he not say, "I'm done"? Is that the last line? Yeah. I'm done. So that it just wouldn't make sense. Like, how do you explain that?
Hasn't he just had a kid? His wife's had a kid and everything. He's like, I'm done. He's sort of done the last mission. I like it. I liked it. It. For me, it felt the second one feels like Terminator 2 to the Terminator, and I feel like there doesn't need to be any more. Like, if they announced it tomorrow, I'd be there day one. Don't get me wrong, but I think them films are magical. I remember watching them both, and I thought there was such a breath of fresh air. There was things I'd never seen before in terms of fight choreography. That was sort of my introduction into sort of Asian cinema, was through The Raid, and then obviously my friend Tarek, who give me more stuff similar to that. But that was my sort of big introduction into sort of martial arts Asian cinema. So obviously I grew up on stuff like Bruce Lee, and I'd seen all that. But in terms of that sort of style, that fast-paced choreo, it's almost like a dance sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
How they're doing it, and it blew my mind.
Do you know what gave me the same feels watching The Raid? So I was late to the party of The Raid, as you know. Only watched the first one. I've watched it twice actually, fairly recently. But I think the first time I watched it was like 9 months ago or something.
Okay.
And when I was watching it, it reminded me of. Do you remember the film On Back?
Yeah.
On Back with Tony Jaa. That was the first. Yeah. That was the first kind of martial arts film outside of like your classic Enter the Dragon and all that. I wasn't really big up on Jean-Claude Van Damme and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the On Back was the first fairly modern thing I watched, and I was blown away with the choreography. I was like, I'm missing something here. I need to start watching this kind of thing. So I was late to the party of The Raid. I heard it was brilliant, but I still wasn't prepared for how good it actually was. But it kind of reminded me of On Back, like with how amazing the choreography was. I'll just see a comment here that's kind of relevant to what we're talking about, Paul, so I'll kind of try and get to it. Told me Recall, not ready for Hobo, mate. No one's ready for Hobo. You just have to take it. But see it. I'm going to send you down Hobo, mate. Don't you worry. It's something to behold. So this is what I'm talking about. So have you guys seen the TV series Gangs of London by Gareth Evans? Pretty solid. I have seen this, mate, and I thought it was amazing. I hadn't seen the Raid films when I watched. So I watched Gangs of London first, and then obviously did a wee bit of research. And found out about the Raid, and then it kind of made sense because I was watching Gangs of London. I thought typical Sky to begin with. Before I seen any action, I was like, right, yeah, this is pretty good. Wonder where it's going. And then the first action scene hit, and I was like, what the fuck was that? Like that is not what I was expecting. Like, where did that come from? Like, where did Sky produce a fight sequence like that? And then I found out who Gareth Evans was, and then I was like, right, that makes sense. He's got the pedigree for it. But have you seen it, Paul, yourself? Or?
Yeah, I'm sort of the opposite on you there, man. I sort of went into it off the back of The Raid.
Right.
And I think I got to like the third or fourth episode, and when it wasn't the fight stuff, I just couldn't get invested in it, unfortunately. I understand why people were enjoying it. It just wasn't working for me. I don't know why. That fight scene you're talking about is the one in the pub, right? That's the
first episode.
The first big fight scene. It was good. Even though it was done by the same person, I don't think that it was as impactful fighting as in the raid. But I think that's down to the actors in the raid because they are trained.
Yeah, that's bread and butter.
They're trained martial artists and whatnot, so they're helping with the choreograph. Where in that, I don't think they were. I never finished it, so I think I got to like third, fourth episode, and I just sort of dropped it. Unfortunately,
season 2 is coming out. I would maybe revisit it, mate. I appreciate where you're coming from, being a big fan of the raid. Maybe you found it a wee bit underwhelming because it wasn't quite, the action and the fight sequences weren't maybe quite to the standard. But I thought the direction it went in, like I just didn't see it going where it went, and like towards the end, the kind of big finale. I won't spoil it for you, but there's some cracking stuff that happens towards
it.
the end.
It might even been the fact that someone else took my attention away from it, and I just never went back to it. Maybe
there's a genuine problem these days, isn't it? We're just like bombarded with so much content; it's impossible to like keep track. But yeah, the one thing I will say about Gangs of London, which annoyed me, I can't remember what this guy's name is. Someone in the chat can maybe remind me. But the guy that plays the main character, his accent bugged the shit out of me. It was so false and pretentious.
I think that's quite
it was so annoying.
We hear that complaint a lot with it.
Yeah, so it was like he was unconvincing. I think he's quite a good actor and other things. I know he's Peaky Blinders, but he was unconvincing for me as like a badass gangster. Even though I think he's a good actor, but I don't know, he's maybe just miscast. But that was the only thing that I found jarring about the show. But yeah, we'll move on. So Campfire, the first raid is so good, just wall-to-wall tension, makes you feel like you're in that tower block with them. Totally, mate. And it's amazing. I seen the Dread film before the raid and thought it was amazing, thought the premise was amazing. I didn't realise, until later that it was pretty much a rip-off of the raid, although it's still a well-executed Dread movie, but they have clearly just ripped the concept from the raid. But no, I totally agree. It's would you agree, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they ripped it off or it was just a complete coincidence.
It was at the same time, wasn't it?
They are similar films, and in that respect, that's why I like both of them. But they do feel very similar film. I mean, I prefer the Raid to the Raid. Do I? Yeah, I think I prefer the first one to the second one. I mean, one of my big reasons why I really enjoy the second one because it's very anime influenced. I'm a big fan of Japanese animation, and you can tell some of the characters in it are very over the top in it. You've got the guy with the girl with the does she have one as a base? The guy has the baseball bat and she has like nunchucks or something. Them two characters in it felt very ripped out of like a Japanese anime. That's one of the reasons I really enjoyed that. It felt a lot more in sort of like the vein of a Japanese anime, whereas the first one felt just like a straight up like action movie.
It felt a little bit computer gamey to me as well, which is almost like each level you had to do. Sometimes like the kind of non-cinematic camera angles that were clearly for practicality to capture, how amazing the choreography was, made it feel like you were playing like a side-scrolling beat 'em up at times. So I quite like that. Maybe a wee bit like the Bruce Lee film. I've not actually seen it, but is it Game of Death when he goes up each level fighting? It's kind of like I feel like it maybe take a little bit of inspiration from that because I know Gareth Evans is like big into Bruce Lee and stuff. But no, excellent. Video Tasties, have you seen So I Married an Axe Murderer? And if so, how do you rate Mike Myers' Scottish accent? Right, Mike Myers has got a terrible Scottish accent, let's face it, but it is a funny Scottish accent and he is a funny guy. I have seen it. It's been a long time since I've seen it, mate. I actually nearly used it in a video. I had that famous clip, the he'd move clip that I was going to put in a video. I can't remember why I dropped it, but it might reappear at some point. So how would I rate his accent? How would you rate his accent, Paul, as a non-Scotsman?
I mean, does he do Scottish in Austin Powers and in Shrek? Isn't he supposed to be Scottish in both of them as well?
You're right. I would say Fat Bastard obviously is Scottish, isn't he?
Yeah.
Then, I would say Fat Bastard.
So he thinks he's got a good accent. He keeps doing it.
Fat Bastard is his best, I would say.
Get in my belly.
I'm dead sexy.
I want my baby back ribs.
I probably Fat Bastard is the best. I think that Mike Myers has got some connection to Scotland. That's why he keeps doing it. He's got family. He's got family from Scotland. Right. That's why he's taking on the accent quite a lot, is my understanding. But yeah, not the worst. Certainly, the worst Scottish accent of all time has probably got to be Christopher Lambert's in Highlander, in it, because he didn't even bother trying. He's just a French accent. But yeah. So let's kind of move on to the TV shows. So since we've not really watched much, we can talk about.
Yeah.
So before we jump on to Obi-Wan and Netflix, have you watched anything other than that maybe a bit out of left field, or that you could recommend to somebody? So other than those two you've watched, that you would recommend to somebody to watch TV show that's kind of concurrent in it?
Oh, I can't. I mean, like I said, the only thing I've been watching recently is Star Trek Discovery, and I mean, I can say to people, if you're not a Star Trek fan and you maybe want to get into it, that for me was a good gateway into it, and it feels a lot more modern. It feels a lot more fast-paced, cinematic. It doesn't feel like the old stuff. I thought it was a good entry point because it's set right all before any of the William Shatner stuff. It's set. It's like the first sort of incarnation of Star Trek and whatnot.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good gateway into it, and it's made me want to branch out into all the other new shows like Picard, and there's a new one that's just come out called Strange New Worlds, which is more sort of in the tone of the original series. So some characters from Discovery have span out into that. So, with Paramount Plus as well, because it's all, if you've got Paramount Plus, I'm fortunate enough, I've got Sky Q and Sky Cinema, so it come free with it.
Get it free, don't
yeah,
you?
So, and all Star Trek's all under one roof on that, because obviously Paramount own it, so it's got its own Star Trek segment on it. So Discovery's on there. I think it's a great science fiction show. You don't even have to watch any Star Trek in your life. It's just a good modern science fiction show.
Does it look good?
It looks fantastic. It looks.
Sometimes that's enough to get me in the door.
It looks. I'm pretty sure I've read the budget for each episode, and it was high. They put a lot of money to it. Funny enough, it looks better than Kenobi. A lot better.
We'll get into that in a wee second.
Yeah.
I think, I've got something to say about the picture quality for Kenobi. But if I had to give one person, so I'll do the recommendation then, seeing as you've kind of already mentioned Star Trek earlier. But one thing I've watched, which I'm a big advocate in it, working stuff, I'm telling people to watch this. Like, this blew me away, and I think it's one of the best, most original things I've seen on TV in a long time, is Severance on Apple Plus. So my wife watches this podcast, can't remember listens to this podcast, can't remember what it is, and I had seen it, and they'd been talking about it on that, and I kind of suggested to her one night, what about this Severance? She's like, I've heard about that, let's do it. We jumped into it knowing absolutely nothing about it, and basically, if you've not seen it, without spoiling it, the premise is that, so it's an Apple Plus original. I can't remember the name of the guy, the actor that's the lead, but Christopher Walken's in it and John Turturro, they're the kind of supporting cast. I can't remember the female lead, but and it's what's her face, Patricia Arquette as well. She's kind of almost like the villain in it.
Is it the main guy? He's the brother in what's the Will Ferrell film? Oh my God, what's it called? The Step Brothers. He's the other brother in that, isn't he? That's the main guy.
Seen that in ages. It's not John C. Reilly, but it's not.
No, not his step brother in it. He's the other brother in it, the one that they don't like.
It might not be, I can't really remember. But anyway, the premise basically is that it's set in the not too distant future. It doesn't actually put a time frame on it, but they're still driving about normal cars and stuff, so it feels very modern day. And basically, scientists have come up with this premise where they can sever your working brain from your personal life brain. So you go into this, when you arrive at work and you step over the threshold, you become work you, and work you has absolutely no memory or recollection of what you do outside of work. You do your working day, and then it's 9 to 5, and it comes to 5 o'clock, when you step over the threshold again, you become personal life you. And does that make sense? So all you remember is getting up and going to work at 9 o'clock, and it's at a blink of an eye, and then the next thing you know, you're leaving at 5 o'clock. So you've kind of basically you've cut work out of your life, but you are working, but you just no memory of it. But the flip side is that working you has no other life than working. So he starts work, and then gets in like the elevator to leave work, and then within a blink of an eye, it's 9 o'clock again. So he's never away from work. But they don't know any other. So you've kind of created two versions of yourself, like a slave version of yourself. So it's like, and outside of the workplace, there's all these movements and campaigns to like ban severance because they think it's inhumane to the severed personality. And it basically starts off, and the corporation that's doing the severance and the work they're doing is very weird. They're like, you know, they're kind of like working out patterns that don't make, like, you know, they're sitting and they're analysing really like boring data, which nobody knows what they're even doing it for. It's almost like it's some kind of scientific experiment when they're in. And naturally they get curious and they want to know about their outies. So when they're at work, they're trying to escape. And then the people that obviously signed up for severance, like, they're quite happy. But basically one of the employees who used to work there gets out, or he manages to unsever himself, and he approaches the main character and basically says, it's no good. Like, it's all wrong. Like, you have to bring about its end. So that plants the seed of doubt in the main character. And then it's this thing about the two versions of themselves almost trying to meet again and trying to kind of unravel the mysteries. But it's done so well. It's beautifully shot. The cinematography there's loads of symmetrical shots in it, which obviously play into the theme of being double-sided. You know, double-sided life. Beautiful to watch. Tension. It's one of those ones. Every episode you're like, oh, I need to watch the next one. Need to know what happens. And ends on a total cliffhanger, and you will be left like, there is nothing like it. You can't go and watch anything else that's like in the same vein. So that's my recommendation. Check out, get yourself like a 7-day trial of Apple Plus and smash through Severance, because it's awesome.
Yeah.
Campfire, been blasting Bosch just now. Never seen Bosch. Do you watch it?
Yeah, my mate's been hounding me to watch it for about 2 years now. So Amazon Prime. He's a big fan of like CSI and all that sort of stuff, and he swears it's one of the best shows ever made. I've just not got around to watching it.
I've just never. Police procedurals don't really do it for me. Like, I like cop stuff and that, but like, I don't know. I find them all. They don't. It would really need a strong recommendation or it to become like, you know, Line of Duty, for example, was massive in the UK. Ended up watching that because it was so massive, but otherwise I wouldn't bother watching something like that. But no, maybe check Bosch out at some point. Tommy, are you guys caught up on The Boys?
I didn't think about that.
Amazing this year. Gutted there's only one episode. I haven't seen any of season 3, right? So no spoilers, but I know you have, Paul. So I'll let you can answer that one.
Yeah, it's one of the best. I don't even know, when you were thinking of something before, I was like, why have I not even thought about The Boys, man? Yeah, it's one of the best shows on TV at the moment. This season's been fantastic. I've enjoyed it all. Like, there's never been a dull moment in it. I think it's come out at the right time. It's come out at a time where there's saturation of comic book and movies and stuff, and it sort of
100%
flips it on its head and shows you from the other side. You know, it sort of pokes fun, even though it comes from a comic book, which I've got down there. I read it. It's sort of poking fun at itself. So it's like meta, self-referential. I think it's fantastic. I can't wait for this season to see where it goes. I was reading the graphic novel, and I think I've got like the first 3 volumes, and I stopped because I didn't want to spoil the show. It's one of them instances where the show is better than the source material. It doesn't happen very often. They've done something with that show because they've tapped into like pop culture and stuff and things that are going on in the world today that the comic doesn't do. And I didn't want to spoil story beats that they were covering in the comic because they switch them up in the show to make them fit with today's society. And I didn't want to go any further in the comic and spoil what they could do in live action. So I think it's fantastic.
It's a tightrope that in general, isn't it? I find see that we're getting so much that it's happened since the dawn of time. You know, like we get things that are originally started off as novels and stuff, and usually people always say, "Oh, the novel's better." But now we're saying we're getting The Boys, getting a lot of graphic novels that have been adapted into TV stuff, and you do want to go back and read, but you don't want to like spoil it for yourself. It's like when Game of Thrones came around, isn't it? You're tempted to go and read the original novels, but you don't want to enjoy it. You don't want to kind of ruin the enjoyment of watching it unfold on screen if you're invested. So as a tightrope that one definitely, because The Boys. My next video actually is all about a video rent. I believe I've not got a video rental shop within half a mile of me, a guy still rents out legit DVD copies and stuff.
Okay.
But I won't spoil it too much because it's what the video's about. But I interview him in the video, so it's the first time I've kind of went out with away from my DVD cupboard.
Yeah.
But he's brought on like pop culture, and he's got a lot of graphic novels now to help kind of subsidise his business, and that's what he has, and that's kind of how I get into it. So I went in there, novelty, like video rental, then found all these graphic novels, and he quickly was like, he was really knowledgeable, and he started giving it like, right, I know people come in here for Batman, DC, Spider-Man, but let me divert your attention to this, and he was like, here's like Image Comics, all these like, I can't remember what label it is that The Boys is, but he was like, he told me about The Boys before The Boys even, he was like, that's going to be a show.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, but it was coming out in just a few months' time, so I was like, well, I'll not read it then because I want to just see it. But there's so many I'm reading from him now, one called The Nail Biter, that I honestly think, like, a lot of the ones he's recommended, like, because he's got Preacher in there, he's got, why the Last Man and all that. These are all ones that he kind of told me about before they became a TV show. So, and Nailbiter was one he recommended. So get us all down to the bookies and put a bet on Nailbiter becoming the next comic book adaptation. But I love reading the source. It's great, but it's just getting that balance with the TV show.
The writer of The Boys, Gareth Ennis, he was the same writer of Preacher as well.
Right, okay.
And he's also done a few runs of The Punisher, which are fantastic as well, which is sort of what they adapted the TV show, where they made it very violent. That was sort of his run with made it more adult, the character Punisher. So that's where they got that from. So he's done quite a bit in terms of getting his stuff adapted.
I've read that in the comics, certainly I've not seen season 3, but in the comics of The Boys, it's actually even more vile than
there's some stuff you won't get away with on TV.
The Homelander's actually tamer. How can he possibly be tamer? But he's tamer in the TV show than he is in the graphic novels. Is that right enough? Yeah,
it's the same. It's the same with The Walking Dead. The TV show gets away with a lot, but the stuff that is in the comics, there's no chance they'd be able to put it on screen. No way.
So I definitely need to check out. I'm choking to watch The Boys season 3. I was quite sharp watching the first 2 seasons, like, as soon as they came out. But I mean, they were a bit like inconsiderate, weren't they? They hit us with Stranger Things.
That's it, yeah.
Obi-Wan, Stranger Things, and The Boys all at the same time. It's like, give us a break, man. How are we supposed to avoid spoilers? If you don't want any spoilers, you have to watch things off the bat now, don't you? So how can you watch all 3 of them? Like, you're doing well if you've managed to catch up. I think I've done not bad, pretty much. Obi-Wan and Stranger Things is nearly in the bag. But yeah,
I've still not watched this week's
spoilers
episode
like mad for The Boys. So so yeah, good comment, mate. The Boys, I know, how did we both forget about that? But yeah. So I suppose that takes us on to, we'll get into the kind of big hitters as such. So you're a big Star Wars man, Paul. I know, believe it or not, I was a massive Star Wars fan as a kid. Like, I used to collect all the figures, all the Kenner ones and all that. I had the Millennium Falcon, the X-Wing, the Y-Wing, the A-Wing, I had everything going. And I remember going to see Star Wars A New Hope when it was re-released in the cinema.
Same, yeah.
It's the only one I caught, but it was awesome. And then it was around about that time I kind of transitioned into leaning heavily into Bond. And I've always been a Star Wars fan, but I've never continued on, like, with the lore and stuff, but I've kept, like, all the other offshoots, the games, the comics, the books. But yeah, I've really enjoyed, I don't know what all the hate's about for, like, the Disney Plus stuff. I think the majority of it's good, and if we can get extra stuff for new generations, great. But what did you, I know you've done a series of it, so if you're watching and you want to hear more about what Paul says, remember, the link's in the description for his channel. You can check out Paul's, like, review of each episode. But how did Obi-Wan compare as a series to what your expectation maybe was kind of it? Did it live up to your expectation? Did they deviate from what you thought they might do? Or?
That's a good question, man. That's a good question. I mean, for me, it's weird because Star Wars is probably the only one franchise where I don't critique it as much as maybe I should, because I'm invested in the story. So I'm not really looking at the cinematography and all this sort of stuff that other reviewers might do. I'm invested in the story. I want, and that, I read the comics, I read the books, I play the games, and they're all connected. All of it fits into the timeline. So going into these Disney Plus shows, I just want more of the story. I'm not looking for, when I'm watching it, I'm not looking at how it looks and how it's shot, even though, it plays into the factor, of course, but I'm more watching it, trying to get more knowledge of Star Wars and the story that, you know, Lucasfilm were trying to put out. So in regards to Obi-Wan, did we need it? Not at all. I don't think it was, you know, if it never existed, I wouldn't have been bothered. But I felt like they told enough of a compelling story that did fit in the timeline. You know, it wasn't sort of shoehorned in. It all connected. It all fit. They did a good job at tying it all up from the prequels to the original trilogy. You know, I went back and watched A New Hope after it finished, and that film now plays differently. So it was like watching it again. So the information that I've been given through Obi-Wan now factors into watching that movie. So it's heightened that movie for me as well, which it was quite good to get a new experience on a film I've seen hundreds of times. But I mean, like, only a couple of days ago, they come out and said it was supposed to be originally a trilogy of movies.
All right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so in that respect, it did. There were parts of it I feel were unnecessary. I feel like it could have been maybe just one movie, sort of compressed down, maybe like, you know, episode 3.5, if you like. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I thought it was incredible. I thought Ewan McGregor didn't miss a beat. It's like he hadn't stepped away from that role. You know, you get these actors that come back, you know, 20, 30 years later to try and get back into the role, and you feel that it's not quite right. A good example is Arnold Schwarzenegger's The Terminator. Him in, you know, the most modern sequels just feels like it's Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to be the Terminator.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it. I don't believe it as much as I did, you know, when he was playing it back in the day. Ewan McGregor was incredible. I loved all the stuff they did with Darth Vader. I loved, you know, it was emotional. It worked. Seeing sort of like where the characters were after episode 3, you know, because that was, I think, between episode 3 and episode 4, I think it's like a 20 or 30 year gap. So there's a lot of story you can tell in that. And I think they told enough of a compelling story where I enjoyed it.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the hell out of it, mate. Just when you're talking about, just before I jump on what my thoughts on it, seeing you're talking about actors that come back and like struggle to play their old characters. Bruce Willis, I think, is a good example of that as well. See, like Bruce Willis trying to play John McClane, it's almost like he's trying to play like like a stereotypical, but like what he believes the kind of fans think John McClane is. Because you look at John, the way he plays him in the later films compared to how he was, I don't think Bruce Willis quite got it. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, for me, right, this is the big thing I'll say about Obi-Wan. Didn't, like you say, don't think we needed it. Didn't really expect it. It felt like it was almost fan driven as well. You know, like the minute Disney Plus was announced and there was like Mandalorian, it was like people were like, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if we got an Obi-Wan?" Like, it felt to me like maybe they always planned it, but it felt to me like they were maybe listening to social media and stuff, and they went, "Okay, you know, maybe approach Hugh McGregor," and maybe went from there. That's what it feels to me. But so I'm not going to spoil it because I appreciate maybe people still not seen it yet. But see, for me, right, as a diehard Star Wars fan who maybe drifted away, like wasn't quite as emotionally involved with it. When I watched that final episode, and I kid you not, like of Obi-Wan, I was proper moved, and I felt like I was like as soppy as this sounds. That is the only live action, and I'm talking about the prequels, the sequels, Rogue One, all that. The one that made me feel like I was a kid again watching Star Wars and getting the magic of Star Wars was the final episode of Obi-Wan. Like, for me personally, that hit me right in the feels. Like, I thought they got it great. Like the spirit of Star Wars, the clever way they tied in the nostalgia. I think they did a great job of, as you say, bridging it. Paul, it felt believable. It felt believable that is what's happened in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. Ewan McGregor was perfect, played it pitch perfect, just enough kind of like wisdom. He's like a halfway point now between where we last seen him and Alec Guinness is like, he plays him very much as a wise old wizard Gandalf type, doesn't he? And I feel like he just gets that perfect. A bit slower speaking, a bit slower moving on camera. He's aged naturally, so he's got that natural kind of like wisdom and kind of, you know, more withered look that comes with just being older. But yeah, I think the way they did it as well, like the kind of, whether they meant this or not, but I felt like mental health is very much at the forefront of things now, especially men's mental health. People are speaking about it more, and I thought it was interesting to see a character like Obi-Wan basically having a mental health crisis. He's lost confidence. He's struggling. He's not dealing with grief, and he feels inept as a Jedi because he's failed. He's failed Anakin, and he's struggling to deal with basically the lot. He thinks Anakin's dead at the beginning, so he feels he's not dealing with the grief, and he's chosen to go into himself. He's given up on his religion, which is the ways of the Jedi. And I loved the slow burn pace. People thought it was too slow, and what's going on here? Where's the lightsaber fights and all that? I thought it was pitch perfect. I loved it, and you kind of go on that journey with him, and you see him slowly but surely rediscover, like his potential and Obi-Wan of old. So I thought it was great, and it's a shame that there's so much like toxic fandom now, because it does infiltrate and it poisons your own mind a little bit. Do you not think when you're watching stuff and you've maybe read something about it, you then start looking for it a bit when you wouldn't have done that if you didn't just watch it without that. So I think going forward for me, the lesson is to like don't listen to any of the shite that's on
100%.
Until you've actually watched it. Then by all means, because go and have a look at what people are saying, but then it won't affect your actual interpretation of it as you're watching. So that would be my kind of. I thought it was excellent.
I mean, what I say about toxic fandom is, if you're not enjoying it, who's losing? You or me? I'm loving the hell out of it. It's you who's losing out, not me. So whatever you say to me isn't going to change my opinion. And the thing is about Star, it's such a weird fandom, and there's times where you have to sort of disconnect yourself from it, because they're never happy. And I don't know what it is, because I love Star Wars as much as the next person who loves it, but nothing seems to upset me about it. But it seems to rub people up the wrong way so badly, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. And I've said to people before, there was actually a guy commenting on my videos saying, just pointing out every problem with it every week, and I ended up saying, why are you still watching it? Like, if you're not enjoying it, stop watching it. Yeah. Like, I don't understand why you constantly, if you're not enjoying it, why do you keep putting yourself through the 45 minutes every week just to sit there picking it apart? I don't understand why you do that. I mean, there's plenty of shows that I've watched and gone, I'm not enjoying this, I'm going to stop watching it.
Yeah, because there's that much now. We're drowned with content, and there's so much choice. So why waste your time watching something?
The good thing about the Star Wars TV shows is you don't have to watch them. They don't have to exist to you if you don't want them to. It's just it just heightens the franchise. It's the same as a comic does, the same as a Star Wars novel does. It just enhances the story. It gives you little tidbits more. If you want to sort of fill in the gaps of the timeline, you don't have to watch them if you don't want to.
Yeah, you choose the interpretations that speak to you and that you enjoy, and you rewatch the hell out of them. You don't have, it shouldn't. It's the same. I think we talked about it before, Paul, with remakes and stuff. I'm a massive RoboCop fan, and the minute people heard that they were remaking it, people were going off their tits about it. It's a masterpiece, it doesn't need remade and all that. Nah, it probably doesn't. But there's younger kids and younger generations out there that have never even heard of RoboCop, so they're now getting to see this modern version of it, and they might quite like it and go, well, I'll go check out what the old one was, and then they'll be blown away. Or they might not. They might go, oh, do you know what? Look at that. It looks shoddy. Look at the stop motion. I prefer the 2014 one because that's my RoboCop. But it's a win-win because we've now got two. I quite like the new RoboCop. I don't think it's a patch on the original, but I've now got two RoboCops that I can watch. If I fancy 2014, I can watch it, and it's maybe brought a new audience to the old RoboCop. So,
and I think
what's the problem here when it comes to remakes and offshoots? I don't get it.
I think people forget that as well. I think people sometimes forget that it's a business as well. Yeah. So Obi-Wan could have been someone's a 5-year-old's first introduction to Star Wars. So who are you to take that away from that kid who could be getting introduced to it through that show? Same with RoboCop. Like you said, it was aimed more at a younger market. I think it was a 12 or 12A. So
it wasn't
it deviated away from the 18 certificate. But like you said, it's a popular franchise. It's a popular character, but you need to you need to keep it modern. You need to keep it fresh for new audiences, and that's what Star Wars does.
It's kind of like, suppose you could say about the Batman, right? Everyone thinks not the Batman as in Batman '89, right? People pretty much that's unanimously loved, I would imagine, by most, and a lot of people consider it the first or the original Batman, but which we know it's not. The original Batman was like, well, the original Batman to me was like the Batman from the '60s movie, right? So that was shite. It was good to people at the time. Like, I'm not knocking the Batman, right? But watching it now was pretty crap. And understandably, the Batman '89 is seen as like the starting point. But if there was no such thing as remakes, we would never have got it, because Batman '89 is not the original take. It's like it's an iteration that came about that everybody jumped on board with because it's good. And but that's just a wee tidbit there to like. If we didn't allow ourselves to reinvent things, and like you say, Batman is 89 years old now, to bring in new fandom, then we won't get these awesome iterations. So
we wouldn't have got the Thing, we wouldn't have got Scarface.
I know. Anyway, I just feel I just feel like there were missed opportunities when it comes to Kenobi. There seemed to be too much focus on characters that weren't Kenobi, Invaders, Anakin. Episode 6 is awesome. Yeah, episode 6 was awesome. As I say, it totally moved me. Episode 6. I think in a way, I know what you're saying, but I'll put it out to you first, Paul. I keep forgetting you're my guest and I'm answering all the questions. So let's.
I understand I understand the criticism. I think at the end of that didn't bother me, and I think at the end of the day, it's still under the banner Star Wars, so you've still got to fill the show up with other characters, stuff like Reva, however you pronounce it, who I thought was a great character. I was going to spoil it, but I won't. But there was another character in there who I thought was great, and a surprise as well. Like they kept that under wraps. That was where the story was going, which was a good surprise. And I thought said person did an incredible job at that character. But I understand. I understand it. I think it might have been down to them maybe trying to pad out 6 episodes. Like I said, I think originally, I remember when Disney first bought Star Wars and they were sort of planning out what they were going to do, and I'm pretty sure an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie was in talk, as well as a Boba Fett movie. I'm pretty sure Boba Fett was supposed to be a movie before they made it into a TV show as well. But I think because of sort of the fallout of the Solo movie, because they were doing Star Wars story, weren't they? So they were doing like an episode movie and then a spin-off one. So they did Rogue One and they did Solo, and I think Solo failed at the box office or didn't do as well as they wanted it to do. So they went into the TV world, and with Disney Plus coming out, they decided to go to the TV world. So they adapted maybe then what was supposed to be 2 2-hour movies into 2 shows.
I think it's interesting what you're saying. Like, it's difficult not to spoil it, but like what you're saying there, Total Movie Recall, like it harks back to what Paul and I think have just talked about, and that like if you're our age, so like someone who's grown up and knows Obi-Wan Kenobi's story, knows it inside out, it's understandable and to just want to focus on that. Oh yes, like I know what this is all about. I know the lore. I know that I've watched the prequels. I just want to see 6 episodes of like Anakin and Obi-Wan. But if you're coming to it for the first time, Obi-Wan's story on its own isn't enough narratively to engage a new viewer for 6 episodes. So there has to be kind of new characters, I would suggest, maybe to to give new viewers something else to latch onto. Because I think you could have dealt with the Anakin and Obi-Wan thing in the space of like, if you were just focusing on that, you could have dealt with it in about, like you say, in a movie, an hour and a half, 2 episodes would have dealt with that. But yeah, I think I had no problem with the other characters. I thought it was interesting, and it gives like Obi-Wan something to bounce off of. But no, I thought it was good. It was a slow burner, and my favourite film was Blade Runner, in it, so I like slow burner. I like slow build-ups to things. So the pacing and the introduction of the characters didn't bother me.
I'm actually planning on maybe cutting out a lot. I'm off work for a week now, so I'm planning on, if I can get the time, just chunking out maybe like 5 hours of a day and just maybe see if I can get through it all in one sit through, just to see sort of how it plays out. Just going straight into the next one, because waiting week to week I like, because it keeps the conversation going with fans, so you can speculate from interesting to see how it plays out. Just to say 1 5-hour movie or however long it is altogether.
I think it's. I think I'm choking to go back. I just don't have as much time with 2 kids, but I've not watched the original Star Wars films in a long time, like the proper OG, and then all of them. So, and I've recently got Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker in 4K. I know they're on Disney Plus, but I've got them in like 4K disc. So I'd like you're saying, I'm off for a week, so I might even maybe try and squeeze in the original trilogy. But yeah, I think it's just great because I think it just like it's made me as a fan want to go back and visit them. Like, I've thought about it for a while, but watching Obi-Wan Kenobi has really been the catalyst for me to go back and enjoy these again. And if I'm thinking that, and I've seen them umpteen times, what's someone who's never seen them thinking? So I think it's great in that regard. So I totally maybe has got a kind of bolt onto this. Let's see what he's saying. I selfishly just wanted more screen time with Vader and Anakin. Sorry, mate, I probably should have looked at this before I dived into it. And that's on me, to be fair. Yep, still enjoyed it, just wanted more. The prequels was my era of Star Wars, and it was good to see them both back. See, that's an interesting thing, because I think Ellis is maybe 10 years younger than us or so, about that. Paul, so he's of that generation that would potentially have seen the prequels first.
Yeah.
I was still young when I seen the prequels, as you would have been as well.
Yeah.
Paul, but we still at least had like proper love and worn out our VHS tapes of the originals. So it's like, it kind of like that kind of fills in what we're saying.
Find it very interesting talking to Star Wars fans that grew up on the prequels. As a lad who I work with who's a lot younger than me, one of the staff members who again grew up on the prequels are his Star Wars. That was his gateway.
Yeah.
And I like hearing the stories of them, and they're I'm not as attached to them as the original trilogy, but I can see why they were attached to them. Like you said, we were young when they come out. When was it? 99, 2000.
Yeah,
so I was only like 12. I still remember going to watch them all at the cinema. But I didn't grow up with them. I wasn't like 4 or 5 when I first seen them, so they didn't capture my imagination as much as the original. I love the prequels. I will defend their movies till the day I die. But I find it interesting to hear, there's people out there who of the sequels are their introduction to Star Wars, the new 7, 8, and 9. I just find it interesting. I think it's a good point for conversation because you interpret everything differently.
What do you think of, just kind of staying on the subject, but it just came to me there, like, it's interesting the times we live in, isn't it? We're like, almost in a way, like, I mean, Top Gun, right? Maverick has kind of like saved cinema to an extent, or proved, hopefully, to studios that you can still make big money out of a well-executed movie at the cinema. But do you think, so you were talking there about like how, Star Wars, Obi-Wan was initially going to be a movie, or back when, and then you had Boba Fett was going to be a movie, and now we've had them as Disney Plus. How much do you think the current climate dictates whether or not an idea becomes a movie or a series? Because obviously a series, to me as a businessman, is more marketable for Disney Plus, because if you put an original, like Disney Plus exclusive or a Netflix original movie, it's an hour and a half. You can jump on, you can borrow your mate's login, whatever, like watch that in an hour and a half and you're out of there. Whereas if you delay something over 6 episodes a week at a time, you have to subscribe, for at least a month. Yeah. And I wonder if that sometimes risks like what the best version would have been, because maybe there's an argument to say that a Kenobi movie would have been better paced, than a series, but maybe it's the current climate that and that money that dictates whether something gets split up. Or
I mean, you're playing with the aspect that you get subscribers. Because Disney Plus are clever that won't put it all at once, where you can get the free trial and watch it and then get rid of it. You have to be subscribed to Disney Plus to watch it, if you want to get it all. So that, and they are cheaper to make, the TV shows, than the movies. Which, unfortunately for me, though, I think that's where my only gripe is with the TV shows, the Star Wars stuff, because as cinematic as they are, and they do look good, they don't look like the movies. And that's down to you probably know yourself, they film it in what's called the volume, which is sort of like a new technology that Disney, I don't think they invented it, or they they use it where it's basically like a sound stage, and they have like all screens round it, and they can sort of fill in with pictures. So sort of like green screen, but the technology's gone a bit further now.
Right.
The Batman uses it
I was
on
just
the
going to say, is
rooftop
that what?
scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
but the
Because
Batman.
I
Sorry, go
was
on.
just going to say that, Paul, like, because
Yeah,
that I didn't know that about Star Wars. I didn't know it was called that,
yeah.
but I watched the featurette, as a lot of people watching this probably have as well, like about the Batmobile, and
Mhm.
like it blew my mind about that, because I thought for sure that the Batman, those scenes with Colin Farrell and Pattinson driving were real. I thought, especially when you watch that feature where they put the drivers on the top, which was cool as well, and I thought, well, that must be real, and he's just driving, because it looked so convincing. And I found that it was actually like the dome LED screen, and it was all.
Yeah,
So it real? It's real filmed footage, but
yeah.
projected,
Mhm.
which it's really clever and convincing. Like, I would never have, had I not watched the Batman making ofs, I would never have known that.
Well, the good thing is the Batman used that technology very well, whereas the Mandalorian used it very well. Boba Fett used it very well because them shows are more are quite set in one place, which is on Tatooine, whereas in Kenobi he's going all over the place. And there were a lot of instances when I was watching Kenobi where I wish I could not see it, but I could tell it was on I can tell because I know that's what they're using. My eyes are
See, I
looking
didn't know
for it,
that,
and
so maybe.
I wish it wasn't. It's sort of probably the same with you when you're watching 4K. It's like sometimes you wish you could maybe not see it. And there was a lot of scenes in Kenobi where I knew straight away it was on using that sort of volume that they call it, the soundstage. A big example was when Reaver was trying to shoot through the blast door. All the stormtroopers were trying to shoot through the blast door
Yeah.
in, I believe, episode 5. And if you look behind them, you can see it, and it was so obvious. And unfortunately for me, that it cheapens the show because they're not using it more in Kenobi. Like, if I'm presuming you've got to have a good cinematographer, a good director to sort of hide it from the audience, but because I know that's what they're using, I could notice it. So it sort of cheapens the show a little bit, even though it looks fantastic. They threw a lot of money into it. It will never look as good as the movie or a big cinematic Star Wars movie.
Just talking, I've got a couple of comments here, but just quickly before I jump into them, do you think it's funny about you're talking about the aesthetic and how Obi-Wan Kenobi looked? Because we always end up talking about that stuff when it comes to my channel. But I thought that Kenobi looked good. I didn't know that about how they made it, but I thought it was quite cinematic. There was some nice shots in it. I felt it was more grainy. It probably shot digitally, but I felt like they added. Maybe it was to keep it, try and recreate, like what they did with The Force Awakens. They filmed on the original, I can't remember what, they filmed on the original kind of same film stock that they used for the original trilogy, because Abrams wanted it to look, I think they used the same cameras or the modern version of them or something, so that Force Awakens, he was massively going for nostalgia, wasn't he? He wanted it to look visually very similar to the original trilogy. But yeah, I thought Obi-Wan Kenobi looked quite soft and filmic-like, whereas see like Mandalorian and stuff, it's like razor sharp and really like impressive looking. That's personal preference, but I quite like. I'm a bit of a sucker for the digital crispy look, and I thought Mandalorian looked, and the Marvel shows looked like that. But I felt Kenobi, maybe it was because Ewan McGregor was in, and it was kind of more of a tie-in to the live action movies. They felt they had to go for that more cinematic look to make it feel more in keeping. But what do you think? Do you think it was? Do you agree with that? Would you say it was like a bit different?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's like the worst. There was. It's weird because there were shots in it where, like I said when we first started talking about it, I wasn't really watching it going, it was griping me or anything, but it was stuff I was picking up on, but I was sort of just letting it go. I was just enjoying the show, sort of thing. But even like the fight at the end, when Darth Vader and Obi-Wan were fighting, spoilers for Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I think we're all expecting that, though,
yeah,
but
even that, and I loved that scene. Even that in that like dark sort of rock planet they were on, and I compare that to say Mustafar, which is the planet they fight on at the end of Revenge of the Sith, all the lava going off, and it just looked cinematic. The music was all cinematic. I felt like that, even though it was supposed to be like the rematch of the century, if you like, it didn't hit as well as that fight from the movie. And I think it's just down to how they're filming it, the cinematography. the I literally put it down to like the cinematography. Yeah, I think that show, and I don't know I know Deborah Chow is the person who directed it, but I'm not too sure who the cinematographer or who uh, was on it. It was the same as the one who did Mandalorian. I'd have to look into it.
Somebody can maybe dive on. Someone who's watching can tell us who the cinematographer was for Obi-Wan. But yeah, I think something, maybe it's because I look for it because it's what I'm into, but I think certainly on Obi-Wan, it's as if like Disney Plus and all these platforms know that HDR is a pull, 4K HDR, and I definitely think some scenes, like movies and whatnot, TV shows, write those scenes in almost. You know, it might, like for example, again spoilers, but do you know that's is it episode 4 where he goes to that base and he has a fight with a couple of stormtroopers and it's basically pitch black, so all you see is a lightsaber, and he's taking them out with the lightsaber. That's like a HDR demo because it's pitch black, but you've got the vibrant lightsaber, almost like it's designed. Like it's kind of like, did HDR not exist? Would that have been better lit? But it's as if they're like, well, let's give the people with the HDR TVs like something to get excited about. So let's have this in the dark, so that the lightsaber really, contrasts. And I felt like that maybe played in a wee bit to what you're talking about, like the final sequence, because again, it was like a HDR demo. It's like all the nice shadow detail, but these like super bright, vibrant lightsabers. And I wonder how much sometimes tech and that creeps into, what the creators do with it. They're like, right, let's do something that's going to look impressive here. Let's make it pitch black. Let's see. Let's let the
surprise me
kind of thing. Yeah,
won't surprise me.
But maybe that's just my take. But right, Chris Kyle, don't listen to the haters. How lucky are we to have so much Star Wars content? Mandalorian is still the boss of the Disney era for me. Yep, absolutely right, mate. Don't listen to the haters, man. you couldn't say it better myself. Would you agree? Do you think Mandalorian's the boss? Do you think it's the best thing that Disney Plus have done, Paul?
It's the best Star Wars show. I don't think it's the best thing Disney have put out of Star Wars. I think that's Rogue One still holds that title for me.
Oh, was that Disney? Was it?
Yeah. Mandalorian's the best thing they've done TV wise. Just because it felt it had enough breathing space as the character to be something new and fresh. Like, for instance, Obi-Wan has to be tied into the prequels and all that. Yeah. Mandalorian was a brand new character, and they had a whole sandbox to play with.
I totally agree with you, mate. Yeah. But I would agree with Chris. I think Mandalorian is I really loved Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like you say, it's got to stick within the kind of parameters of what an Obi-Wan Kenobi. So it's got a clear beginning, it's got a clear end, and then they can only be so creative, can't they? Like in between. But no, he's followed up with. Oh, sorry, I think I've missed one there. Kenobi was good. The true test of the volume, lads, will be Thor: Love and Thunder on the IMAX screen. Nowhere to hide on that bad boy.
Yeah.
Yep.
They've already pulled up, haven't they? A few scenes that people think they've said it's been filmed using that. People have pulled up a few scenes I've seen on Twitter and Instagram where it looks really jarring. You've got oh my god,
the use of that CGI,
that like sort of volume things. And there's a scene in the trailer of Jane Foster, and there's things happening behind her, and it looks like they've literally superimposed her onto the background. Now, that's only a trailer. They could clean that up for the final film. We'll see. But yeah, they've used this volume for Fall of Thunder. So it'll be a test to see, especially on IMAX, like you said, because you'll pick up on that if they've not hit it very well, or a lot easier.
4K is a blessing and a curse that way as well, isn't it? I think sometimes like the detail that 4K presents is much, if it's done right, it's fantastic. It's more immersive. But if there's something that they're trying to hide, 4K is going to massively expose it, isn't it? And IMAX, there really is no margin for error with the clarity that IMAX captures. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'll definitely be seeing Thor in IMAX. Have you got an IMAX near you, Paul?
Yeah, I think we're going Saturday, so it'll be like 2 days after release. I think we're going to go watch it the next weekend.
It's all about getting a babysitter for us, but we are both off this week, so maybe there's 2 in Glasgow. This is like 30-40 minutes from here, so we'll maybe try and go and see it Thursday night, because you're forced now. If you're a big fan of it, you're kind of forced to go. If you don't go within that first weekend, you can't you just can't go on social media.
You know what? I don't want to sound like a hater or anything like that, because, like you just said, don't listen to the haters. I'm not as excited for Thor as I thought I would be or would want to be.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. It's just something about this phase of Marvel stuff where I'm not itching to go and watch it like midnight. Like back in the day, a few years ago, like Civil War and Endgame. Mate, I was going midnight screenings. I was biting it, at the chomping to go and watch it. The last few films, apart from Spider-Man, I'm going to go watch it as quick as I can, but I'm not I won't be disheartened if
I think we've
thing spoil on it or anything.
I think we've just been spoiled. I kind of see people of our age at like that 10 years, that first 10 years, that's like our era. I'm not saying we can't enjoy anything that happens after, but like that first 10 years was our Marvel. Like for me, Iron Man through to Endgame is my Marvel, and I love it, and I'll try and get them on physical.
And I don't think that 10 years of movies will ever be recreated ever again.
Sorry, mate, I've got a
little one.
An interloper here. Gracie. Come on then. Come on, say hello to Paul. This is my youngest. Gracie. You having a look at the camera?
Well, she wants to pick a film to watch. Hiya.
Hey, Gracie. What are you doing up? It's nearly 10 o'clock.
Oh,
this is why I can't get watching Stranger Things, folks. For this. Right, you can back to Mum. You say bye-bye. Right. Blowing kisses. Bye-bye, darling. And she's off. That's my daughter, folks. Anyway, sorry. So yeah, that to me is like my Marvel, and yes, I'm not going to hate on it, but I think it's just people maybe that are the same, as that put a lot of energy into it early on, have just got chronic burnout. Like, see Chris that's commenting there. Chris is Marvel's most loyal customer. He's never turning away from the Marvel franchise, and he will defend it. And he loves all that stuff. He's always looking into what the next thing is, preempted in that. So, and that's great. And he's obviously like a legacy fan, if you like, but he's still loving it. But for me, I'm a bit burnt out, and I think it's almost like the passing of the torch a bit. Maybe like newer fans, guys that were my age when I watched Iron Man, will maybe get invested in these new characters, who would like, I don't know, Moon Knight, what's the other one from Hawkeye's name? Can't remember now. But like the ones that are Kate Bishop, that's it. The ones that are kind of taking over the mantle. Thor, Captain America, Iron Man, they were my ones. But
I've never thought about it like that. That's a good point. I've never ever thought about it like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I feel it's like the passing the torch. Am I going to keep watching them? Of course.
Oh, yeah.
But am I kind of like what you're saying? Am I as excited? No, I kind of like go. I'm more kind of like, all right, is that the next one? Right, cool. Like I'll see it when I see it. But so that's Love and Thunder. I'm excited about because he's like a legacy character that I still have that little bit of like investment in. But the new ones, I've been left a bit high and dry with the shows. I have to say that I think they're well produced. I like the Winter Soldier the most. Maybe it's because it's like more adult, a bit more serious, a bit more to my taste. Moon Knight, I felt just fizzled out and went like nowhere exciting for me. Kate Bishop and like Hawkeye was good, kind of light-hearted action comedy. Didn't like what they did with Kingpin. Disneyfied him a wee bit. Give me the Netflix Marvel series any day, I would say, over what I've seen so far. But that's another. We're going down a tangent there, but I'll jump onto the next one. So I think Chris has just put that up twice, has he? That's the same comment. Right, so Total Movie Recall. Apologies. The damaged voice box on Vader with Anakin's voice coming through. Holy shit! No, did you like that? Yeah, I thought that was a cracking touch, because that's always an issue for me. It's always been an issue that like, how does that work? Like, why is Anakin talks like Anakin? Where did they all of a sudden start to sound like James Earl Jones? I thought that was nice.
They did that.
Nice that they played that James Earl Jones is a false voice. Like he still speaks like Anakin, but it's projected that way. So I thought that was a great touch. No, that was awesome, mate.
Yeah, that really was.
The last episode was genuinely great. I'd be happy to see more Kenobi. So with that, I think from what I've read though, it was intended as a one shot, like a one-off, and it does kind of but it does. I think I know it's again. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a character that reappears at the end which feels like is a natural jumping off point, isn't there? For like, we want to see maybe more of where that kind of goes
I
at the
think
end.
I predict that we'll see that character again in the next Jedi Fallen Order video game. Because the next Jedi Order Fallen video, the
The spoiler
Jedi Fallen
character.
Order
You're
video
talking about.
game. Oh no. Okay, no. I'm talking
No.
about the Inquisitor.
All right. Okay. Right.
I
Okay.
think we'll see her again in the next video game because apparently
Ah.
the
Right.
next
Yeah.
video game runs around the same time as
Uh-huh.
the Canadian
I still need
series.
to. I've got Fallen Order there, and I still need to play it. It's just getting round to it. I do
Yeah,
want to play it. I've had it for me. I first mentioned I picked it up in a pickup video about 6 months ago, and I've not even played it. But yeah, I do really fancy it. I know I'm going to enjoy that game. I just know I will from what people have told me. And it's Star Wars. And it's open world. I know I'm going to like it. It's just sitting down to play it. But Chris Kyle, so rumor mill here. Disney, MCU, Sony has signed up Garfield for a Secret Wars movie, Amazing Spider-Man 3, and a Spider-Verse movie. Thoughts? Good idea? Bad idea? Not asked. And his follow-up is hook that into my veins. So that's Chris. That's your Marvel, Mr. Marvel, basically, right? He could be a character in his own right. So I'll put up the main one. So yeah, back to that. Thoughts, Paul? Tell you what, you can answer this one, Paul, right? While I go and get another can of beer. Back in a second. The
Sign
steel's
me up,
yours.
man. Sign me up. I actually really enjoy Andrew Garfield. Andrew Garfield in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I thought he was a great Peter Parker. I thought he was a great Spider-Man. A lot of fans have said, like, die-hard Spider-Man fans, that he was sort of too cool to be that character, but I thought he fit in with the sort of the time, the time that the movie come out. He's a phenomenal actor. He's had Oscar buzz and whatnot. I thought he was one of the best parts of No Way Home, Far From Home, whichever. I always mix up their titles. He got the biggest reaction from the crowd in the cinema when we went to watch it. He was awesome in it. He was the only person in that movie that made me tear up. The bit when he catches MJ in it. Yeah, give us more Garfield, man. If he wants to do another one, give him one. Secret Wars is a movie. Is that a movie or is it going to be a TV series? I felt like I thought they were making a TV series, Secret Wars, but I feel like that's where Marvel's heading is with Secret Wars. I feel like that's the next big sort of Infinity War Endgame sort of movie will be Secret Wars. I remember I used to watch the '90s Spider-Man cartoon back in the day. I remember that part of the animated series. It was one of my favorite parts. It brings in all the characters and whatnot. Amazing Spider-Man 3. Yeah, give him another shot. Why not? I'm one of them people who I enjoyed the first Amazing Spider-Man. The second one, it's all right. I don't hate it as much as other people do. Spider-Verse movie. They've already got 2 of them in the works, I believe. So I don't know. He might cameo in them, maybe. I don't know. Well, yeah, Andrew Garfield's a phenomenal actor, and like I said, he's one of my favourite parts of the last Spider-Man movie. His sort of cameo, and I'd love to have him back in another one in some capacity.
Yeah, like from my standpoint, like I think Spider-Man's such a big massive character. He's up there with like your Batman, your Superman, isn't he? Like he's of that level of so he's always going to have eternal appeal.
Yeah.
I've always said that I think Garfield is the best actor out of them all. Like they've all brought something to it, and everybody's got their own favourites. But I think there's no denying that Garfield has the most range. He's the most talented actor out of the 3 of them. I think so. Yeah, I feel like Andrew Garfield feels like unfinished business, doesn't it? I think like Tobey Maguire to an extent had a run that kind of stands on its own. I felt like Andrew Garfield, and it was kind of publicly known that he was he was a bit disgruntled with the fact that he got punted in the first place. So it does feel like there's unfinished business for him. So it feels like natural for him to come back. He's been well received. So yeah, I'm on board for that. I think Spider-Man works better than any other one when it comes to like a multiverse. I think it was proven with the film. They worked it perfectly. So that went down in an absolute storm. So yeah, like I'm kind of up. The other ones I'm dubious about, like see this whole Batman, the Flash timeline. I'm not sure how comfortable I am. I mean, that is a fucking mess. There's no one's gonna convince me otherwise. DC have like made themselves a mess, and they're trying to do the best they can with it. and it's a shame for like Ben Affleck and all that. He was. I
Shame
thought
from
he was.
DC fans as well.
Yeah, it's just a mess. It's just an absolute mess. But it's coming back. It's clawing its way out with like the Joker and the Batman and all. It's definitely clawing its way back from the mess they got themselves into. But I digress there. Yeah, what I mean is like what was I meaning there? Aye, so like just but the multiverse I'm all for. I think it will work. I think Spider-Man's well known. Like there's so many like what's that called? Like the Spider the Secret Wars and the Madam Web stuff and the 90s stuff I heard you talking about there, Paul, and the animated, like it just lends itself well to it. It's already been proven that it works. The three of them have great chemistry, and then there's obviously going to be a live action Miles Morales soon, isn't there? So how they
we'll see that eventually. 100%.
Yeah, that'll happen as well. He can get integrated into the live action kind of multiverse, and I think it works. It doesn't work as well elsewhere. I'm just totally I'm uncomfortable with the idea of like multiple Batmans. Just Batman's more grounded in reality than like all the other ones. Yeah. So taking him into like a multiverse, just much like the reason that like I don't think Batman vs Superman and the Justice League worked is like Batman pales into significance when you put him against people like meta humans basically. Yeah. But Spider-Man's different. He's a proper out and out like superhero with superpowers, so it kind of works better. But anyway, I went on a diverse tangent there, but yeah, definitely not asked. I'd be excited for that. Definitely, I'd be on the.
Like I did say when he popped up when we went to the cinema to watch the last Spider-Man movie, that got a reaction from our crowd. I could hear it behind me.
More so than was it just me? I was like, well, let me read this next one, but yeah. I thought Garfield stole the show in the latest Spider-Man. I would agree. I thought he actually outshone to an extent. I mean, obviously the lead Spider-Man is Tom Holland, and he's great. Like nobody gets the. If you're talking about like well-rounded, for like playing Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and the physicality that he is basically a Spider-Man in real life, Tom Holland's hard to beat. But the one you wanted to see more of was Garfield. Tobey Maguire, dare I say, it was a bit underwhelming. Like,
I think he's aged out a bit. He was old when he made that film. He was, he looks young. He looked young in them films, but he's got to be pushing like 50 now, isn't he? Like late 40s.
He must be mid-40s. I think you're right. I think he's just aged out. I think he's just not as convincing as a Spider-Man as such. But there's maybe they can have fun with that though. Like, have we seen an aging old Spider-Man before? I don't know. But yeah, definitely. Chris Kyle, the Russos have always said they wanted to do a Secret Wars. I'd buy money to see that. Yeah, like the Russos have got such a the way they handled Infinity War and Endgame. How could you know it? Like if they said they wanted to take on a massive comic book event movie like that, you just give them the money, don't you? Yeah. So yeah, I'd be up for that. I know they're branching into their own stuff now. They're obviously trying to make almost like an own studio of their own, and they're borrowing a lot of the actors they work with. What's the most recent with 21 Bridges? Chadwick Boseman, that was a Russos, wasn't it? And then
did they do Extraction as well?
Extraction, yeah. I was just going to come on to that, and obviously there's the sequel that I think that's in the canon, the second Extraction with Chris Hemsworth. But yeah, I think as long as they're not tired of doing the superhero stuff, then
I mean, as a Marvel fan, I would like to see them do an Avengers versus X-Men movie. They've done it in the comics. That was a massive story in the comics back in the day, and they need to bring the X-Men in at some point. I'd love them to have that movie, and then they have to then team up. I'd love to see an Avengers versus X-Men movie.
X-Men's definitely got untapped potential. Like, not taking anything away from what's gone before with X-Men live action. We've obviously Hugh Jackman became a household name because of Wolverine. He is the definitive Wolverine, isn't he, for many? Just what do you think of the most recent news of have you seen the most recent news that kind of fan favourite Taron Egerton? He's now in talks to play the role. Yeah, you're on board with that.
He's so different from Hugh Jackman. I think that's what they need to do. They need to, if they're going to bring these characters into the Marvel universe, they need to feel very different from the 20th Century Fox movies. First Class and all that. So, Taron Egerton, am I saying that right? Yeah. He's a complete different actor to Hugh Jackman. I think he'd fit. I've seen fan art of him in sort of mocked up to look like Wolverine. I'm like, there's Wolverine. Yeah, he's a great actor. You can never picture someone. You know, I couldn't really ever picture Ben Affleck as Batman till I seen Ben Affleck in that costume. I was like, well, that's Batman. Do you know what I mean?
Ben Affleck looked fantastic as Batman. I thought, like, so like Batman of the video games and of the comic books. You know, that kind of like hulking, almost unnatural, like as close to a superhero version of Batman you could get, almost like unrealistically bulky. But it works because that's how he's drawn in the comics, or in a lot of them anyway. But yeah, right. I'll just say something now. I planned this to be about an hour and a half to 2 hours with contingency, but I'm enjoying talking to you, Paul. So if you're happy to kind of continue on for a little bit, the only thing is my battery and my phone's about to run out, so we'll have to kind of wrap it up fairly shortly, sadly. But we've only really got Stranger Things to talk about, which we didn't. But there's a few comments here, so we'll continue on the thread because I'm enjoying it. I think the people that watched it are. So. Catfather's just said Garfield. I'm assuming that was a correction from earlier. Chris Gill's got a good one here. Have you seen Batman No Way Home photo on Insta? I have, mate. Have you seen it, Paul? You know what he's talking about?
No.
It's basically an image of, like the No Way Home one where it was like the 3 Spider-Men kind of like the one that was used in it. It was leaked and that they were all like the still where they're all like web swinging at the same time. So someone's made a fan art mock-up of the 3 Batmen with their capes deployed, kind of like gliding together in the same shot. So that's what he's talking about. So he's saying, who makes your Batmaster? So if you had if you only could pick 3 in a multiverse Batman film, who would they be?
Keaton, Bale, Rob Pattinson.
It's probably an easy one, that, isn't it?
Yeah. I was thinking about it then. I was like, no, that easy. Keaton. I love Michael Keaton as Batman. That was my introduction into Batman movies, if you will. There's nothing I can say about the Nolan films. That nothing that everyone else has said. They are incredible. I love Christian Bale as Batman, and I also love Robert Pattinson as Batman, which is something I'd never thought I would be saying 10 years ago. I think he's I think he is phenomenal.
I will say that I wasn't. 10 years ago maybe but when Pattinson was cast, I had no objections straight away. I felt as if, I see where they're going with that. I wasn't sure if he'd pull it off, but I thought he's a good actor. He's got the aesthetic. Give the guy a chance. He's a good casting. It's just whether or not he can deliver. But he more than delivered. I think he's like. I mean, this might be controversial. Let me know what you think. But I think in the Batsuit, which I appreciate, it's got a lot to do with. A lot of credit has to go to the production team as well for creating the Batsuit. But that particular Batsuit. But I think Pattinson is maybe the best looking. I don't mean that in a homosexual way. But I mean, like, I think he's got the most impact on screen as the Bat. I think when he's behind the kill, he can act the shit out of being in that suit more. I would say more than the previous live action. Keaton's got an intensity for sure. He's got a right intensity in the costume as well. But I just thought Pattinson. The only one thing I struggle with Keaton is that I don't think, and it's because of his physicality. He's not a threat. He's not physically threatening. Keaton. I think you can see in the suit that he's shot. You can see that he's. What is he, 5'8", 5'9", or something like that, Michael Keaton? Yeah, that's my only kind of complaint with Michael Keaton. So I think Pattinson is the best on screen in the costume. What do you think yourself?
I mean, I think I agree. I might go as far as saying it's probably my favourite. I could still be riding the hype. I'd probably go as far as saying it's my favourite on-screen Batsuit as well. Thus far, and it might even just be down how the director Matt Reeves has shot that. He shot the shit out of that movie. Everything, the way he put it together, and the way he was filming the Robert Pattinson in the suit. That first time you see him in the suit, that whole scene, I was blown away. I remember the test footage that come out from him in the suit like 2 or 3 years ago, and it was just like a 20-second video. And it was like a red room. It was like red and black, and it was just go around him, and it just go up to his face. And I was just like, "Oh, that looks phenomenal!" That. But you're right, and again, I think it's down to the director as well, who got the best out of Pattinson, because he was telling a lot just with his eye movement in that movie. He did a lot of stuff with just his eyes, especially in the interrogations. The scene with the Riddler. He did a lot of acting.
He looks uncomfortable. Yeah, you can see just through his eyes that the Riddler's getting under his skin, and he looks. I thought that's what Pattinson brought to the role fantastically well. The one scene that I love, it's a subtle one. It's near the beginning when he's investigating the first murder. The mayor, and he does all that, and he kind of, it's the first time we see that he's sharp when it comes to investigating. He's observant, but he's leaving. He sees the boy, the son, and he stares at him. And I think that's a fantastic bit of acting. Like, he doesn't do anything other than like projects an intent. You see in that scene that when he sees the boy,
you know exactly what he's thinking.
Immediately reduced to that wee boy. Like, he might be standing in the batsuit, but he feels like a scared little boy because that takes him back. And I love that scene. It's so subtle, but I love that.
And he doesn't say a word either, but you know exactly what he's thinking.
You know that he is all of a sudden a scared little boy again, and he's reliving it because he's reliving what that boy's going through. But anyway, that's my thought on it. But so Chris has got another comment here. Absolutely, Paul. Avengers versus X-Men will definitely be happening. Take all my money. It's the next level MCU event movie. Phase 4 multiverse stories and Deadpool 3 are the gateway to it.
Now, I believe this next 4 film is the last Phase 4 movie.
Right.
I think.
See, I've lost it with that. I actually rely on Chris to keep me up to date.
I think I've read that. I think this is going to be the last Phase 4 movie. So something really needs to happen at the end, which is probably the one thing you're going to want to try and avoid if you're not watching it sort of opening day, myself included. I think they're going to have to do something really at the end to sort of lead us into what's coming up, because I believe it's the first phase that isn't ending with like a big event movie, like an Avengers or something. So I think it's weird that they haven't done one.
I suppose Love and Thunder. I mean, it's maybe a stretch, but I suppose Love and Thunder might be seen as like the kind of the big event finale. I suppose like you've got legacy cast. Like Guardians. I would consider Guardians of the Galaxy. I know they weren't Phase 1, but they're much loved, aren't they? They're characters that have stayed on from the Russo brothers as the finale of the Infinity War and Endgame. You've got Thor, you've got Natalie Portman coming back, and you've got Taika Waititi, who has been massive for the MCU. Yeah. So maybe that's kind of like the big full stop, shall we say.
Still want to see Blade. I want to know where Blade comes in.
Well, I know. I'm excited for that. I think I struggled to say his name. It was some Scottish. Is it Marshala or Marshala? Marshala Ali.
Marshala Ali.
It's the first name I can't pronounce. Yeah. But yeah, no, I've seen him in 2 things: True Detective season 3 and Green Book. And he was absolutely amazing in both of them. So I have every confidence in him doing well. We've got more spam in the chat. Modfather, if you want to wield your hammer. Anyway, totally speaking of Thor. Toby Recall, Keaton, Patterson, Kilmer. I take it that's your fantasy bat triple. Do you know what? I like Val Kilmer as Batman. I think he's underrated. I think he didn't have much to do in the role.
He was just in a bad film.
Yeah, I quite like Batman Forever.
I liked it when I was 10.
It is more of a kind of like when you watch it. I watched it again recently in 4K, which it looks awesome in 4K, by the way. Neon lights and stuff. I recommend getting it. It's such a clean. What we were talking about earlier. It's an old film, 35mm that's been scanned, so it's got that. That was shot yesterday. Look to it, but no, I would revisit. Get it, Paul, in 4K and revisit it.
Check it out again. Too bad I haven't watched it in maybe 10 years.
Here's a good one. What about Bill Skarsgård playing Eric Draven, the Crow? Big shoes to fill. Have you seen the Crow, Paul?
Oh, yeah. I love that film. This film has been in developmental hell for as long as I've been talking about films. I feel like that they've been trying to get this Crow reboot off the ground for about 10 years. They've had who else? Oh my God, Game of Thrones guy. What's his name?
Game of Thrones guy. What that was going to play attached to play
Drogo. What's his name?
Oh, Khal Drogo.
What's his
Aquaman? What's it? I can't get his name either. What's his name? Jason Momoa. Jason
Momoa was lined up. He was putting stuff on his Instagram a few years back that like it was going to happen. It didn't. Bill Skarsgård. Is that the Northman? Is that the right one? Or is Bill Skarsgård?
Yeah, Bill. I think Bill's it.
Pennywise.
What is the guy from the Northman called? He's a Skarsgård as well. But...
Alex Skarsgård, is it?
Alex Skarsgård. Skarsgård. That's it.
No,
I think but I think that one, what's his name again? Bill. I think Bill aesthetically suits the role down to a T, definitely. I just don't know. Well, I'm saying the Crow had such a 90s aesthetic, doesn't it? Like, it leaned into a lot of the musical cues of the time. It's quite gothic. Do we still have that these days? Maybe not as much. However, that being said, the Batman, obviously, which we've been talking about, leaned heavily on the 90s grunge, and it worked, well received. So maybe it's the time. Maybe like the Batman's kind of like created a nice path for it to slide in there and feed off that 90s nostalgia a wee bit.
I'm shocked it hasn't happened yet. I'm really shocked we haven't seen one, but I'll be up for it.
Last chance, Ches. Thanks for dropping in, mate. Appreciate the comment. Evening, guys. Hope you're having a good one, mate. Thanks for joining. No Batfleck. Are you talking to Total Recall there? Or us? Did we not have the bat? See, we kind of jumped on there. I think I'd want the Batfleck in there. I don't know what it is about Ben Affleck. I just like him, but it's so hard to drop them. What was the fantasy three you had there, Paul?
I said Keaton, Bale, and Robertson. I liked Ben Affleck as Batman. I just didn't see enough of him in the films he was in to warrant him. He should have got his own film. Saying that though, if he would have got that, would we have got the Patterson Batman? So it's one of them, isn't it? He's not my worst, but he's not my favourite.
I think. Did you read recently that apparently he was interviewed somewhere? Oh, no, it wasn't. It was Matt Reeves actually. It came out in the press junket when Matt Reeves was talking about the Batman. That apparently when he was, because obviously he was attached to. Was he not attached as like the writer initially?
Yeah, he's supposed to write it. I'm sure he's supposed to direct it, I think, as well.
Yeah, he's supposed to direct it. I can't remember what came first. But did Batfleck, call him Batfleck? Did Ben Affleck not originally write into his contract he wanted a solo film and to direct? Was he not supposed to direct it as well?
Yeah, I think he was, yeah.
And then it went to Matt. Then it was like, no, it needed to be Matt Reeves. Like, he couldn't commit to directing as well, so it was like Matt Reeves brought on, and then obviously it was Affleck dropped out and Matt Reeves continued on. But I think Matt Reeves was saying when they were at the stage that he was going to play Batman, apparently Affleck the word used was Bondian. He wanted it to be a Batman film in the style of a James Bond movie. So I don't know if that was like leaning heavily on the kind of the gadgets, the kind of charisma. I don't know how you'd have sweeping locales right enough when you're kind of chained to Gotham. But saying that, they didn't do that in the past. Like, obviously the Dark Knight, it kind of worked, didn't it? Leaving, getting outside of Gotham.
I remember reading it was at some point there was a script draft of it all being set in Arkham Asylum at some point as well. I remember. So that was in talks. It was essentially like an Arkham Asylum Batman movie, which would have been cool to see.
Yeah, there's been loads of cool. I think you're more up in your comics than I am, Paul. But there's been loads of like one-shot comics like that deal with the more supernatural, the psychological side of Batman. And I definitely think that'd be a good. I mean, what do you make of the whole like the Joker 2 being a musical? I mean, fucking hell, if we can get the Joker 2 as a musical, then surely we can get like a trippy, like kind of in the head of Batman psychedelic one-shot like Arkham Asylum. You know, what do you think of the Joker 2 as a musical?
I'm all down for that, man. Because in my head I'm thinking, right, they've got I don't know if it's been officially announced. I don't think it has, but Lady Gaga, they're talking to play Harley Quinn.
It's a great casting.
I'd be all for that. If they can get sort of story together where it's her sort of origin tied to the Joker and it's all in her head, all the musical numbers are in her head, sort of thing, I'd be all for that. Yeah, it's I trust the director of the Joker to. On paper, it sounds daft, but I can imagine you got Lady Gaga in there. She obviously is a singer.
I kind of hope they don't cross over with Pattinson and stuff. I hope, like, I'm all for the musical side of things. I would never have guessed that. I would never have told you if someone said, "Would you want the Joker 2?" I wouldn't have said, "Oh, I'd love it to be a musical." But I think it'll work, and I think I'm not surprised to an extent, because when I heard Joaquin Phoenix was even entertaining a sequel, the kind of like the actor that he is, I thought there's no danger. He's not just going to do a sequel for the money. If he's coming back, it's because it's like something out there, something that no one's seen before. So then when I heard it being in it, I was like, all right, okay, that makes sense why he's on board again, because it's something that's going to be totally out of left field. But it'd be cool if we just got a Joker trilogy, say, that maybe was like a totally different tone every time, and that was it. We know the Joker's related to Batman, and maybe at the end we could have like almost like the spectre of Batman coming in to almost like just satisfy the fans that way. We don't even see him, or there's no actor really cast to play him or anything that way. I'd like it if we just got a standalone Joker trilogy that was quite arty, and that's it. It's a one shot, and that's it. And then we can there's always going to be a Joker coming into Matt Reeves' Batman world because it's been teased. So I hope that's what they're going to do with it.
I agree, Matt. I'd be well up for that. Just leave it as it is. Don't attach it to Batman. If you want to put him in Batman there, like you said, it's some sort of way of doing it. Do it, but leave the Joker as a Joker movies, and the Matt Reeves ones as Matt Reeves.
Yeah. No, I'm only joking. I think I know you're not joking, mate. I know that you're Batman forever through and through.
I like the soundtrack of it, man.
Oh, it's awesome. See, you too. Hold me, kiss me, kill me, thrill me. I'm a bit of a sucker for Seal as well. And is it the credits? We get Chris Rose. Brilliant, man. Total recall. Bale was a brilliant Bruce Wayne, but not a great Batman. Pattinson's Batman is great. His Bruce has some work, but I'm looking forward to seeing that progression. Yeah, I think that's a common point, kind of feeling, isn't it, amongst the kind of the fandom, the community. I've not been too harsh. I've not judged Pattinson on his Bruce, because I think it's quite clear that there is no Bruce Wayne in that movie. Does that make sense? He's consumed by he's Batman. He's not. There's no duality yet. So it's not that Pattinson couldn't act or couldn't bring the Bruce to it. It's just there was no Bruce in the script. Would you agree with that, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, like my sort of how I'd love the second one to end when we get it is, the movie plays out, and then at the very end we see him in the suit, the billion-dollar suit in Wayne, and playing that role. That's sort of how the film ends, and then it goes into the third one. I'd like him to find Bruce Wayne in the next one.
Because we've seen Pattinson do it. I mean, if you've seen Tenet, you know that like he plays a kind of Bondian, kind of like eccentric Bond almost. So he can play the suave. He can do that. So I'm sure he'll channel a bit of that when it comes to playing Bruce Wayne. But no, I agree with you. I think that'll be a good payoff. That's what I want to see. I want to see him become charismatic, deliberately charismatic Bruce Wayne, who knows that he has to trick the public. He has to divert the public's attention from Batman. I think he's still to learn that.
Off the back of Tenet, before I realised he was cast as Batman, he was my pick for James Bond. I would happily see Robert Pattinson as James Bond. I knew him.
I've never even considered him. I've never even considered that. But like now that you say it, it might not be the what that's a stream in itself, mate. Talking about who we want to be Bond. Last chance, Ches. Pattinson, the only guy to reverse time by becoming a bat after being a vampire for many years. Good one. I know. It's hard to believe that he was even in those Twilight films after you watch.
He made his money, man. He made his money.
His body. I mean, have you ever seen Good Time? You seen Good Time?
No.
You'd definitely watch Good Time. Like, it's I can't remember. Is it the Safdie brothers, the ones that did like Uncut Gems and stuff? Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler on Netflix.
Oh, I've seen that one.
It's like a kind of weird, trippy, kind of crime thriller, shall we say? But he's a low-level, like petty criminal, and it's basically like one manic night where it's like a botched job going wrong, and he's like mentally challenged brother, shall we say, who learned difficulties, ends up in the jail off the back of it, and it's his like manic attempt to like get him out of jail. But it goes in a direction you'd never expect. But I watched it straight after the Batman, so it was like totally different. But it totally gave me an appreciation for the range that Pattinson has. Like, so if you want to see the range, it was on Netflix. If you want to see the range,
I think it's on Netflix.
Watch Good Times. Not for everyone, but it's definitely like a showcase on what he has, what he can bring to the table. Now, he's probably time to go on to Stranger Things, so I don't know how much battery I've got left. Stranger Things, clap, clap, clap. On those two episodes, 8 and 9, wow. I've not seen 9 yet, Chris, but I know Paul has, so he can maybe comment. So well delivered and paced, which is no mean feat considering they're 1 hour 30 odd and 2 hours 30 odd. The Dustin Eddie's uncle scene. I don't know, no spoilers. Don't be giving me spoilers.
I would say that's the one scene out the whole of the last episode that got me. That scene. There was a few moments in there. There was a few moments where they were trying to tee you up for an emotional reaction. I was okay with a few they were doing before it. I was sort of keeping my composure. Got a bit of a wobbly lip, and then that scene hit, and I was gone. Absolute phenomenal acting from.
I was going to watch. My plan is to watch it straight after the stream. Like, I've watched 8, so I've just got like the finale to watch. So I'm looking forward to it. But we'll get more into it in a minute. Still get this spam on the chat. I'm just blocking.
But in terms of the time as well, the length of the episodes, I've seen a few complaints saying it felt too long, too padded out. I didn't clock watch once the whole entire both episodes. I was locked in.
It's rare these days. It's rare these days. I'd agree with you that, but I couldn't move this away. I watched Stranger Things, one of the few episodes now. I mean, I don't know about you, mate, but I struggle with my phone like as all. I'm maybe a bit addicted to it, especially if you're a YouTuber. You're always on it, like comments and checking stuff and that. But Stranger Things is one of the few shows where I put my phone away, I put it on charge, or I actually remove it because I know that I'm going to be engaged. And I watched episode 8, and then a whole hour and a half, phones away, didn't even think about it once, and watched it from beginning to end. I think time's not an issue as long as it's as long as what they're delivering is good and none of it is filler, which is obviously subjective. But I didn't think anything that I've seen in Stranger Things so far is filler. I think it's all works well. I've not seen the final episode, obviously, but yeah, like that last one that was an hour and a half felt like a movie, but I didn't feel burnt out after it. I didn't like. It wasn't like, oh, I need to wait a few weeks to watch the next one. I've had enough of Stranger Things. You know, I'm desperate to watch it. The only reason I didn't watch it is because it was like 12:30 at night, and I couldn't commit to like another 2.5 hours. But yeah, no issues with the length of it. Dealt with. He's talking about the spam that was in. If your name's no doing, you're not getting in. Fair enough, mate. Jason Momoa, Chris, God, that must be Mel's behind these comments. Pennywise, mate, is Bill. Yeah, cool. Ben Affleck had great potential, was just hindered by not so great movies. Yeah, I'd agree. You know, on that, the proper standard, right? So I'm nearly kind of caught up. On that, I was talking to someone in a Facebook group the other day. Do you know, I like Zack Snyder, right? I like his, shall we say, how would I describe Zack Snyder as a filmmaker? I would say he's like, it's kind of like he's like contemporary art almost. He creates like ugly art. I'm not wording this very well. It's like I can see that he's unpolished and that he's a little bit self-serving. You know, like the whole thing with IMAX ratios on his recent stuff. That you shouldn't be putting 1.4 at like Oscar. The Oscar aspect ratio, as they call it. There's absolutely no place for vertical black bars in a world where we've all got fucking widescreen TVs. That's just totally self-indulgent. Like, totally self-indulgent. Like, that doesn't work, and it's jarring. Now, I don't mind it on Batman Remastered and stuff because it is uncropped, right? And I ended up going out and buying, so I got rid of my old Blu-ray because I was buying the remastered. Didn't realise I didn't have any of this. Have you got that one? The remastered?
Batman vs Superman remastered. Yeah,
sorry. But it doesn't have any special features, so I was like, bastard, I've got rid of all my special features. So I ended up buying, I'll just show you actually. I ended up buying this digibook thing. I don't usually double dip, but it's not really double dipping if it's not got all the content. So I bought this like digibook, which is the Blu-ray. I thought a bit different. It's just got like artwork in it and stuff, which I think is taken. You might have the book, but some of the artwork in it is taken from a standalone book. So this is like a sample of it, but there's a proper dedicated book for like some of the artwork of the film. So I bought that. But yeah, I just felt that like the switching aspect, it's uncropped, so yeah, we're seeing more of the image, but that's not like nobody's got a projector that's got that ratio, you know, the 70mm ratio. I think that the way they did the Dark Knight using the 1:7:8 ratio, that is still slightly cropped, but it just plays better because it's still a widescreen format. So you still are getting more of the image. maybe not all of the image, which is maybe what Zack Snyder was going for, given that I'll put it in 1:4:3, then you're getting everything. But it's jarring as fuck when you're watching something in widescreen and it just like flips round. And no matter how big your telly is, for some reason, like horizontal black bars for me aren't an issue. If you've got a big TV, it doesn't feel that intrusive because it's like you get the whole width. But when it's vertical, it does feel like you're being robbed of your screen size to an extent. So I don't mind because I've still got like the full 240x1, is it? HD Batman vs Superman. But I just think I've kind of went off on a tangent, but that's an example of how Zack Snyder's a bit radical that way. Like visually, apparently I was reading something. I watched. Do you ever watch Movie Collector, the YouTube channel?
No.
Definitely check him out. Really good. He reviews stuff. Older guy, but he's got a lot of subscribers and that. He's got a nice style, a bit different. But he talks about it, and he talked about how for Batman vs Superman, Snyder used like a ridiculous amount of cameras. I think he shot 15mm, 35mm, 70mm, IMAX. He used a GoPro for the Batman for the the bit. Do you know the bit I'm talking about? Where is it down the barrel of one of the bad guys' guns? That really cool.
Oh yeah.
There's a bit where it's like GoPro footage. He used about something like 30 different cameras, which does create a kind of unique, I suppose, experience. But it gets to the point where it's like, right, come on, mate, like pick a style and kind of go with it. It's a passion quilt. So I just feel I like Zack Snyder. It's like he's like an American muscle car of a director. He's like a bit grotesque at times. You've got to appreciate the kind of the beauty of it. But I do think that like Zack Snyder's Justice League is massively overrated as well. I think its 8.1 rating on IMDb is total fandom. Would you agree with that? Do you think it's overrated?
I won't go. I liked it, and I think I will probably the reason why it's that high is probably the same reason I'll probably say is because it was sort of like a fan driven thing, and we got justice for the other version, Joss Whedon one. It's a film I've only ever watched once. It's a film I can't imagine myself revisiting a lot. It's long. A lot of people said they didn't feel the length. I did feel the length with that, but it was sort of like watching Lord of the Rings extended. You've got at least experience it once, sort of thing, to see what it is. It's almost sort of like I don't know what's the word to describe it. It's almost it's just something you had to as a film fan and as a fan of Batman, and we got that crap film. It's something you had to experience as a film fan. I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than the Joss Whedon one, but
I just think it was like is it more thematically is it more consistent throughout? Is it obvious that it's one director's vision? Yes, that is 100% a Zack Snyder movie from beginning to end, and he's put loads of extra, like obviously cut footage, and he's changed the villain and all that. But I think if like people are coming out saying now it's a masterpiece. Now it's a masterpiece. Yeah. No, it's like the whole premise and the concept, the story is still the same story, and it's in my opinion a bit weak. So it's more like true to the director. And you're right. I think it was a massive win for the fans. I think it's quite a like historical thing. It's probably the first time in history that basically the fans, because of the internet now and stuff, the fans have like led a charge and got their way to an extent. But I think when you look at other films that have ratings of 8 and over, what on earth is like Zack Snyder's Justice League doing in there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like I said, I've only watched it once. I bought it on 4K. What the 4K still got? Never to have been watched. I've only ever watched it when it was on Sky. I watched it on
HBO Max and HD, straight into HMV as soon as it became available. Bought it. Yeah. Sticked it into the collection. It's never seen a light of day since, but it's there. I will watch it as a film. I was Batman, so at some point I'll definitely revisit it, no doubt. But yeah, I like Zack Snyder. I just don't know why I like him, but I like him. But yeah, because I do think there's flaws there. But anyway, we need another proper standalone Batman game.
Yes.
Yes.
We did.
we both agree. We've got Gotham Knights coming. You excited for that?
Took me words out of my mouth. Yeah, we've got that coming out. I'm a bit hesitant about it. There's something about it's not clicking with me. There's a Suicide Squad versus the Justice League game coming out that's made by the same people who did the Arkham games.
I think I'm
Rocksteady.
more excited about that than the.
Yeah, this Gotham Knights one is just done by Warner Brothers Studios, Game Studios.
Is it not the same
Which
team
I
that
think
did-
is confused. I think people are getting it mixed up a bit. I think people think this Gotham Knights is a sequel to the Arkham games, and it's not. The Suicide Squad one is. It's set in the same universe.
Ah, right, okay, yeah. I knew that the Suicide Squad's game was the actual studio behind,
Mm.
but I didn't realise the actual continuity, that it was the same world. But yeah, have you heard the news recently as well that apparently Batman Origins is getting a full fat remaster or a remake?
Oh yeah, I'll be all over that. I love that game. I think that's a great set of games. Them Arkham games.
Because that wasn't the same studio. Yeah, that wasn't the same studio that did the rest of the Arkham games, but it obviously felt very similar. I remember enjoying it at the time. You can play it on PlayStation now or whatever it is.
No, I think
the on-demand one. But yeah, I'd be all over that if it came out as a PS5 remaster. Get through some of these comments. The Flash is fucked. Ezra Miller is fucking cancelled. Still big hopes for the return of the Keaton. Yeah, he's an absolute bear, didn't he? Like,
there's a lot of
Ezra Miller.
There's a lot of talk that Keaton is apparently they're doing a Batgirl show, aren't they? Michael Keaton's back in that as well. And I've heard
filmed in Glasgow.
Yeah,
a lot of the Batgirl was filmed in Glasgow. Some of my mates and shit sent me some just iPhone captures of like the set and all that. So
that's apparently been test screened. This obviously just rumours, but apparently it's looking good for this Batgirl show. Keaton's supposed to be really good in it. This Flash film, I don't care. I don't care if I never have to see it.
I'm a wee bit like that. It's a shame because it's like the return of Keaton, but even I'm a wee bit like that. I'm a bit like, I think the whole Ezra Miller stink is maybe just think, can't be arsed with this, and it's still carrying on that, like, for lack of a better expression, fucked universe that DC have, like, that is burnt out. You know, it was like Zack Snyder's baby, who's no longer in charge of it, and it wasn't that great to begin with, and now it's not even Zack Snyder that's helming it, so it's like, you know, I think we should just draw a line under it. We've got good projects going forward with the Batman and Joker and stuff. It's a shame that Keaton's going to be... I just worry that Keaton's going to be brought back, and, like, someone as iconic and as loved by the fans as Michael Keaton as Batman is potentially going to get brought back into a shitstorm. Like, do you know what I mean? That's my concern, but it'll get a massive box office because Keaton's in it, regardless of what fucking Ezra Miller's up to. Wagwan. What's happening in lockdown stash? Is that a personal joke?
No, it's London slang.
It's what slang?
London slang.
Oh, right, okay. Lost on
We're
this.
not allowed to say it because we're white.
What's that? Oh, right, okay. Because Zack Snyder is a self-indulgent douchebag of the highest order. Sorry, Hector. I'm expecting a hit on me now. Do you know? Do you follow Hector on Instagram?
Yeah.
The big American dude that buys
all the...
Yeah. He's some boys of a character, isn't he? He's always like buying all the Mantle Lab stuff, and he's mad that we are.
I, as much as you know, I really enjoyed the Watchmen movie he put out. I've always defended that film. I think that's an incredible movie.
You think it's what's that? The Watchmen?
I think that's an incredible movie.
Yeah, I love the Watchmen. I actually got it in 4K.
Yeah, same. I've got it up there.
I've got a bone to pick with Talking with the Recall. We still watching actually. Had an Instagram conversation with him about like buying steelbooks and that like should maybe rein it in, watch for spending and all that. And we're talking about the Titans of Cult. And I was like, I really want it, but I'm skinning and everything. And he's like, nah, you're right, mate. He's like, there's no, you've got to watch the pennies. I don't think I'm going to bother, blah, blah, blah. So I goes out to Sex, don't I? Or CX, and I buy myself like this Watchmen, not even a slipcover, mate, right?
Yeah.
Right, for £12. Great value, but like no slipcover, no frills, Watchmen. And then like literally the fucking day after, Told Me Recall's got the big like story and the big post about Titans of Cult Watchmen, and I'm like, wait, what the fuck? You can sold me down the river there, mate. But yeah, no, I've not watched it yet, but I love The Watchmen, and I've never seen the. Have you got this one, Paul?
Yeah.
I've never seen the ultimate cut with
Yeah,
animation. So
that's long as well.
what's that?
That's long as well.
Yeah, but I don't mind it. It's like I love the film, so I don't mind getting a bit longer. But Oscar win for Zack Snyder's Justice League was a joke. The Snyder Cut fans again as the fanatical best. I didn't even know it won an Oscar. What was that for? I didn't know that.
Best visual effects or something?
I don't think it's won the packaging. Must have won
No,
the Oscar after the physical release came out. What did it win an Oscar for, Chris? Let us know, mate, in the comments.
Must be visual effects, maybe. I can't think of anything else.
Yeah. What do you think of the new PlayStation Plus tiers?
I have not really delved into them yet. I've still got the standard one. I've got too many games of a back catalogue before I start having 800 at my disposal, or how many there is. All the games they've added to it are ones I've already got. It's sort of like the early back catalogue of PlayStation 5, like Ghost of Tsushima, Demon's Souls, things on it, a few others. I've already got them all.
Interrupt you, Paul, but I think my battery's about to go. So sorry about that, mate. I don't want to cut. I want to say cheerio before. Battery's about to go, lads. How's it going? Lockdown startups are jumping in, but unfortunately, I'm down to 1%. So before I go, just quickly say, Paul, thanks very much for joining the stream. I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for staying on a lot longer, Paul. Sorry I had to cut you off halfway through. Hopefully, we'll do it again in the near future, mate.
Cheers for having us on, man. It's been a pleasure. Look, I hope to do it again sometime, man. I'll let you go.
No worries, man. I really appreciate you coming on, getting the first one off. I really enjoyed it, Paul. Always enjoy chatting with you, mate. From day to this, one-to-one. But I'll go now because I don't want it just to end abruptly. So thanks, everyone. Cheers, Paul. We'll do another one soon and get Paul back. Remember for Paul's channel and Instagram if you want to see more from Paul and what he's up to. All right, but thanks, everyone. Cheers again, Paul.
Take it easy. Bye.
Cheers, man. See you later.